In the late 1600s, an ordinary sailor named Henry Every seized a ship through mutiny, declared himself captain, and in just one raid captured the equivalent of $100 million in today's money, becoming the most successful pirate in history. For 2 years, Every terrorized the seas before vanishing completely, his fate unknown to this day. Here's what life was really like aboard the most notorious pirate ship in history. Hey, quick thing before we start. If these stories help you fall asleep, hit like or subscribe. Drop a comment with your city. I'm always curious if you're listening from New York, Texas, California, wherever. Wild to think we're all across different time zones doing the same thing. Alright, let's head back to the 1690s. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust those pillows, pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. You wake with a start. The wooden beams creak above your hammock as the ship rolls sickeningly to port. Your back aches from weeks of sleeping on rough canvas, and the familiar stench hits you immediately. Unwashed bodies, stale rum, salt-soaked wood, and something worse. The sulphurous smell of gunpowder lingering from yesterday's cannon practice. Unlike your soft bed now, this hammock swings with every motion of the ship. You've learned to sleep with it, this constant rocking that never stops. Not ever. 6 months at anchor has at least given you sea legs, but that's about the only mercy you've had. Up, you worthless dogs. The boatswain's voice cuts through the dim light of dawn, filtering through the hatch. All around you, men groan, curse, and reluctantly slide from their hammocks. They're a rough bunch, scarred, weathered, and desperate. Just like you, their beards are matted with salt, their clothes stiff with it. Nobody's bathed in weeks. You don't even notice the smell anymore, which is probably worse than the smell itself. Wait, what's happening? You hear someone mutter. We moving? Ship's not supposed to leave yet. The deck above vibrates with footsteps. That's odd. No one's supposed to be manning the sails. The ship, the Charles II, has been stuck in this Spanish port for half a year, while the captain, a man named Gibson, waits for paperwork. 6 months of watching the crew's meagre wages dwindle to nothing. 6 months of empty promises. Something's going on, says the man beside you. That's not normal. You can feel it too. The different motion of a ship underway rather than at anchor. The gentle sway has been replaced by purpose, by forward momentum. The Charles II is moving. The hatch above slams open, flooding the cramped quarters with morning light. A face appears, backlit and fierce. All hands on deck now. That's Joseph Dawson, the quartermaster. He's not one for theatrics, which means this is serious. You grab your worn leather vest and scramble for the ladder. On deck, chaos. Men rushing to stations they haven't manned in months. And there, by the helm, stands First Mate Henry Every. Not Captain Gibson. Every. He's not what you'd expect of a pirate, if that's what he now is. Average height, a bit on the heavy side, with what sailors call a jolly complexion. He's about 40, with sharp eyes that miss nothing. He's standing tall, giving orders like he's been captain all his life. "Where's Gibson?" someone shouts. "Captain's indisposed," Every replies with a tight smile. "Drunk and sick in his quarters last I checked." A murmur runs through the crew. The story comes out in pieces as you work your assigned station, hauling on ropes that haven't been used in ages. Captain Gibson had been roused from his drunken slumber by the motion of the ship. He staggered to the quarterdeck to find Henry Every at the wheel. "The hell are you doing?" Gibson apparently demanded. And Every, this is the part that sends chills through you. Every just looked at him and said, "I am the captain of this ship now, and this is my cabin. Therefore you must walk out. I am bound to Madagascar with a design of making my own fortune and that of all the brave fellows joined with me." Just like that, a mutiny executed in a single sentence. But what about Gibson? You ask the sailor next to you, a weathered man named Samuel. Samuel spits over the rail. Every put him and 16 of his loyalists in a small boat, sent 'em back to port. You stare at him. He didn't kill them? Nah, Every's not one for needless blood, but he's not one to be crossed either. It's a lot to process. You'd signed on for an honest privateering expedition backed by Spanish money. The goal had been to patrol the Caribbean, maybe capture some French smugglers or buccaneer ships. Good, legal work with the promise of prize money. But Gibson had been a terrible captain, and the expedition had gone nowhere, stuck in port while the crew slowly starved on half pay or no pay at all. And now you're apparently part of a mutiny, a pirate crew. Any man who doesn't wish to join, Every announces from the quarterdeck, his voice carrying across the ship, may leave now with Captain Gibson. The rest prepare to set sail for adventure and fortune beyond your wildest dreams. Nobody moves. Not a single man volunteers to leave. The prospect of actual pay, of actual action after months of waiting is too tempting. So, just like that, we're pirates? You ask Samuel. He shrugs. Privateers, pirates, the line's thinner than you think. At least now we might actually get paid. And what's Madagascar got that's so special? Samuel's smile is gap-toothed and knowing. That, my friend, is where the pirates go to build their legends. A fellow Englishman named Thomas Tew already ventured there, built himself a right reputation plundering treasures in the Indian Ocean. They say Madagascar is where ordinary men like us can seize fortunes with sword and pistol. That night, as the newly christened pirate ship, now called the Fancy, cuts through the waves, Every calls all 80 men to the main deck. The air is cool, stars brilliant above, the lanterns casting long shadows across weathered faces. Men, Every begins. Honest sailing has promised you long, oppressive voyages for paltry food and meagre wages. I promise you something different. You can feel the energy in the crowd, the collective leaning in. Under my command, we'll live by the pirate code. Our loot will be divided clearly and fairly. No man will go without his share. His eyes sweep across the assembled crew. Unjust captains can be voted out. My own power is checked by our quartermaster, Joseph Dawson. He gestures to Dawson, who nods grimly. Today marks the beginning of our freedom, our fortune, and our legend. The crew erupts in cheers. Even you find yourself shouting, caught up in the moment, in the promise of something better than the half-starved existence you've known. But Samuel, beside you, remains quiet. What's wrong, you ask, when the cheering dies down. Nothing's free in this world, he says quietly. Every has a plan, mark my words, and whatever fortune we find will come at a price. You want to ask what he means, but the crew disperses, men heading to their stations with a new energy, a new purpose. Over the next days, you learn the rhythms of life aboard a pirate vessel. It's not that different from a naval or merchant ship, except for one crucial detail. There's no flogging, no harsh punishments for minor infractions. Every runs a disciplined ship, but he's not cruel. Men are assigned duties based on their skills, not forced into roles they can't handle. The food is still terrible. Salt beef and hardtack, occasionally supplemented with fish caught from the rails. Water turns foul within weeks, taking on a greenish tinge and a smell that makes your stomach turn. Rum becomes the drink of choice, not just for pleasure but for survival. First stop, the Cape Verde Islands, Samuel tells you one morning as you're checking the rigging together. We need provisions if we're going to make it to Madagascar. "We're just going to sail into port as pirates?" Samuel laughs. "No, you fool. We'll fly the English flag, act like any other merchant vessel, get what we need, then be on our way." But that's not what happens. Not exactly. When the Fancy reaches the tropical waters of Cape Verde, Every has a different plan. Rather than dock in port and risk questions, he sets his sights on 3 English merchant vessels anchored in the harbour. "I thought we were going after French ships or pirates," you say to Samuel as the crew prepares for their first raid. "Those are English ships. Pirates don't much care about nationality," Samuel replies, checking his pistol. "Gold is gold, no matter who's carrying it." The raid goes surprisingly smoothly. The merchant crews, surprised and outgunned, surrender without much of a fight. Every doesn't allow unnecessary violence. Another surprise. The pirates take salt beef, fish and other provisions. Every even makes an offer to the impoverished merchant crews. Join him and share in the fortunes to come. 9 sailors accept on the spot. The rest are left with their ships intact, minus some cargo. "That was civilized," you say to Samuel afterward. Every smart. Unnecessary bloodshed brings unwanted attention. Besides, those merchant sailors will spread the word. Henry Every, the gentleman pirate, makes the next raid easier when your prey doesn't expect to be slaughtered. As the Fancy continues its journey, you begin to understand the pirate social structure. It's nothing like the rigid hierarchy of naval vessels. On a pirate ship, major decisions are voted on by the entire crew. The captain has absolute authority only in battle, when quick decisions mean the difference between life and death. Every explains the rules one evening as the crew gathers for the evening meal, such as it is, hardtack soaked in broth to make it chewable. "Each man signs the articles," he says, "and each man has equal say, share and share alike for provisions. When we take a prize, proper shares will be distributed." "What's the split?" someone calls out. "Captain and quartermaster each get 2 shares. Every answers. "Specialists, like the master, boatswain and gunner, receive a share and a half. Officers get a share and a quarter. All other crew receive 1 share. It's more equitable than any arrangement you've seen on merchant or naval vessels where common sailors might work for years without seeing significant pay. "And if we don't like how things are run?" another voice asks. "Then you call for a vote," Every replies simply. "No man is above the crew's judgment, not even me." There's murmuring at this. It's a revolutionary concept in an age where captains rule their vessels like gods. Days turn to weeks as the Fancy cruises into the turquoise waters of West Africa. One morning, Every calls you and several others to the quarterdeck. His face is serious, his eyes hard. "We're approaching what sailors call the Slave Coast," he says without preamble. "I know these waters well." You didn't know much about Every before the mutiny, but bits of information have filtered through the crew. After a stint in the Royal Navy, he made his living here on this coast, purchasing people from African chiefs and often stealing those same slave traders as well. "Some of you may have moral objections to what happens here," Every continues. "Save them. We need supplies, and this coast offers opportunities." "What kind of opportunities?" you ask, unable to help yourself. Every's gaze is cold. "Profitable ones." Later, Samuel fills in the blanks as you work together repairing a sail. "Every was a slaver before this," he says quietly, making sure no one else can hear. Men and women begged for mercy as he shackled them below deck to starve and wallow in their own waste. Months later, he'd haul out the survivors to be sold on plantations in the West Indies. Your stomach turns. And now? Samuel shrugs. Now he's a pirate captain, but old habits die hard. The next day, the Fancy approaches a verdant harbour on the Guinea coast. Every raises the English flag, a signal of peaceful trading intentions. Soon, a group of local villagers paddle out in canoes, bringing goods to trade. What happens next will haunt you. The moment the villagers are aboard, Every gives a signal. The pirates reveal hidden weapons. The villagers are robbed of their gold, placed in chains, and taken below deck. New cargo to be sold at the next profitable port. "This isn't right," you say to Samuel that night, your voice barely a whisper. "This isn't what I signed on for." "You signed on when you stayed aboard during a mutiny," Samuel reminds you. "But I understand. Not every man has the stomach for slaving, do you?" Samuel is quiet for a long time. "I've done worse to survive," he finally says. "But no, I don't particularly like it." The mood on the ship darkens after that. The human cargo below decks creates a tangible weight, a moral burden that affects even the most hardened sailors. Every seems to sense it. Perhaps that's why, when the coast of Africa falls behind, he orders a change in the ship's very structure. "We're removing the extraneous decks," he announces. "The Fancy will become the fastest vessel on the Atlantic." The crew sets to work, dismantling the extra decks that once held human cargo. Without these decks, the ship becomes lighter, more nimble. Days of hard labour transform the Fancy into a sleek predator built for speed and manoeuvrability, and not a moment too soon. 2 weeks after leaving the African coast, the lookout spots sails on the horizon. 2 Danish privateering ships, heavily armed and loaded with cargo. Battle stations, Every roars, and the ship erupts into activity. This is the moment of truth. The Fancy may be fast, but she's about to face her first real test against armed opponents, not just merchant vessels. Every's face is alive with anticipation as he gives orders from the quarterdeck. This is what he was born for: the chase, the fight, the conquest. The Fancy surges forward, her newfound speed closing the gap between predator and prey. As you help prepare the cannons, Samuel appears beside you, his expression grim. "Ready for your first real pirate battle?" "You're not really, but you nod anyway." The Fancy draws alongside the first Danish ship, and Every gives the order to fire. The cannons roar to life, belching flame and iron. The violent torrent of cannon fire tears into the Danish vessel's hull and rigging. To your surprise, the Danes quickly surrender, raising a white flag rather than risk further damage. "Smart move," Samuel mutters. "If they'd fought, Every would have shown no mercy." The second Danish ship, seeing its companions surrender, follows suit without firing a shot. The boarding party, led by Every himself, returns with amazing treasures: 40 pounds of gold, chests of fine fabrics, ivory, guns, and 50 large casks of brandy. Best of all, at least from the crew's perspective, 17 Danish privateers decide to join Every's crew rather than face an uncertain fate. That night, the expanded crew celebrates with captured brandy. The mood is jubilant, the earlier moral qualms about slaving temporarily forgotten in the glow of victory and alcohol. "This is just the beginning," Samuel tells you, raising his cup in a toast. "Every's got bigger plans? Much bigger." You want to ask what those plans might be, but you're interrupted by a commotion near the main mast. 2 sailors, deep in their cups, have drawn knives over some perceived slight. Before anyone else can react, Joseph Dawson, the quartermaster, steps between them. He doesn't draw a weapon, he simply fixes them with a stare cold enough to freeze the Caribbean. "The articles," he says, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet deck, "forbid fighting among the crew. Put those away or you'll answer to the captain." The men hesitate, then slowly sheathe their blades. Dawson nods. "Good, save your fight for our enemies, there's plenty to go around." The incident passes, but it reminds you of the thin line between order and chaos aboard a pirate vessel. The articles, the pirate code that every man has signed, are what stand between civilization and savagery. It's a more democratic system than any naval vessel, but it requires constant maintenance, constant vigilance. As the Fancy continues its journey, now months underway, you spot something that takes your breath away. Pods of breaching whales, their massive bodies arcing gracefully through the air before crashing back into the sea. It's a reminder that despite the human dramas playing out aboard the ship, you're traversing one of the last great wildernesses on Earth. The ship rounds the Cape of Good Hope, leaving the Atlantic for the Indian Ocean. Cool winds carry the Fancy forward, and at long last the crew spots a distant, friendly harbour on the horizon. Madagascar, Samuel says, pointing to the lush green shores coming into view. Home of seafaring colonies of thieves and killers. Pirate dens. After months at sea, the sight of land, any land, is enough to make the entire crew cheer. But this isn't just any land. This is the legendary pirate haven, where men like you might remake themselves, might seize fortunes beyond imagination. As the Fancy approaches the harbour, smaller vessels come out to meet her. Aboard them are pirates of all nationalities, English, Dutch, French, even a few Africans and Indians. They wave and call out greetings, recognising a kindred spirit in the approaching ship. Every stands at the bow, his face impassive but his eyes alert, taking in every detail of his new domain. He's brought the crew this far through mutiny and battle, across thousands of miles of ocean, but you can't help wondering what comes next. The shores of Madagascar are host to a new world, a world operating by its own rules. For a sailor who began this journey aboard a legitimate privateering vessel, you're about to step into the heart of piracy itself. And somewhere out there, across these waters, lies the greatest prize of all. Though you don't know it yet, the treasure that will make Henry Every the most successful pirate in history. The treasure that will put a price on his head across 4 continents. The treasure that will make him a legend. Samuel claps you on the shoulder as the Fancy drops anchor in the sheltered bay. "Welcome to your new life, my friend," he says with a grin. "The real adventure is just beginning." The ground feels wrong beneath your feet. After months at sea, your body has forgotten what stillness feels like. You sway slightly, as if the solid earth of Madagascar is still rolling with ocean swells. The sailors around you move with the same awkward gait, sea legs struggling to adapt to land. "Feels like I'm drunk," you mutter to Samuel as you stumble slightly on the beach. "Wait till you actually get drunk," he replies with a grin. "First round's on the captain." And he's not joking. Henry Every has ordered the stolen casks of Danish brandy brought ashore. Within hours, a bonfire roars on the beach, and the entire crew is merrily gorging themselves on alcohol they haven't had to water down for once. You take a long pull from your cup, the brandy burning a delicious path down your throat. It's good, really good, the kind nobles drink back in England, not the swill usually found in sailor taverns. The revelry continues deep into the night. Men who were strangers when you joined the Charles II months ago are now bonded through shared danger and the unspoken understanding that comes from choosing this life. You're all outlaws now, pirates. There's no going back. Through the firelight and drunken haze, you spot Captain Every sitting apart from the main group, deep in conversation with several men you don't recognise. Their clothes mark them as fellow captains, the telltale signs of wealth that successful piracy brings. Gold rings, silk scarves, fine pistols tucked into ornate belts. "Who's Every talking to?" you ask Samuel, nodding toward the group. Samuel squints through the darkness. Other captains, Madagascar has dozens of pirate crews using it as a base. Every's making connections. Smart man. Why's that smart? Samuel looks at you like you're simple, because one ship alone is vulnerable. But a network of pirates sharing information, resources, that's power, that's survival. You watch as Every laughs at something one of the captains says. He seems different on land, more relaxed, more human. It's easy to forget he was a slaver, that he still is in some ways. Easy to forget the villagers chained below decks during your voyage here, sold off to who knows where the moment you made port. The night wears on. Men pass out on the sand or stumble back toward the ship. You're about to do the same when Samuel grabs your arm. "Come on," he says, his words slightly slurred. "I want to show you something." He leads you away from the beach, up a winding path that cuts through dense vegetation. The jungle is alive with noise, chirping insects, distant animal calls, the rustle of things moving in the darkness. The clicking sound of unseen creatures follows your every step. "Where are we going?" you ask, suddenly aware of how vulnerable you are, drunk and unarmed in unfamiliar territory. "Pirate Town," Samuel replies. "The real Madagascar." The path opens up to reveal a settlement unlike anything you've seen before. It's a strange hybrid of European architecture and native construction, wooden buildings with thatched roofs, lanterns hanging from posts, and in the centre an open-air market still operating despite the late hour. Men of all colours and nationalities haggle over goods. You spot English, Dutch, French pirates mingling with local Malagasy people. There are even a few Indians and Arabs in the mix. Women too, not just locals, but European women who've somehow found their way to this remote pirate den. "Didn't expect to see women here," you remark. Samuel chuckles. Some are wives or companions. Others run businesses, taverns, boarding houses. Madagascar's one of the few places where people can remake themselves, regardless of where they came from. You pass a group of pirates engaged in a heated negotiation with several Malagasy men. One of the locals holds up what appears to be a cow horn, while the pirates offer what looks like gunpowder. "What's happening there?" you ask. "Trading," Samuel explains. "The locals trade cattle for guns. Been happening for years. The Malagasy get weapons to fight their tribal wars, and we get fresh meat. Seems civilized. Don't let it fool you. There's still plenty of danger. Different pirate crews sometimes clash. Local tribes raid each other, and then there's the biggest threat of all." "Which is?" Samuel's face darkens. "England's East India Company." The name sends a chill through you despite the tropical heat. Even as a regular sailor, you've heard stories about the company. What began as a simple trading enterprise has grown into something more akin to a nation-state with its own army and navy. Their ships patrol these waters, Samuel continues. Every year they carry fortunes back to England. Tea, textiles, spices from Indonesia, China, Persia, and the Mughal Empire in India. You're about to ask more when a commotion erupts from a nearby tavern. Two men burst through the door, locked in combat. One wields a broken bottle, the other a wicked-looking knife. Both are clearly drunk, their movements sloppy but dangerous. The crowd around them doesn't intervene. Instead, they form a circle, some placing bets on the outcome. "Shouldn't someone stop them?" you ask. Samuel shrugs. "Not our crew, not our problem. That's the pirate way." The fight ends abruptly when the man with the knife slips in the mud and falls. His opponent pounces, pressing the broken bottle against his throat. For a tense moment you think you're about to witness a murder, but instead the victor demands the loser's purse, takes it, and staggers away, leaving his opponent humiliated but alive. "See?" Samuel says. "Most pirates would rather take your money than your life. Dead men can't pay debts." The next morning arrives with the special agony only a brandy hangover can deliver. Your head throbs in time with your heartbeat as you make your way back to the Fancy. Most of the crew is in similar shape, moving slowly, speaking little. Every, however, seems fresh and alert as he calls the crew to assemble on deck. Some men are missing, likely still ashore or passed out somewhere in the settlement. While you were all drinking yourselves stupid, Every begins without preamble, I was gathering information. The crew shifts uneasily. No one likes to be reminded of their excesses in the harsh light of morning. The East India Company has 3 ships patrolling these waters. He continues, they've already spotted the Fancy and given chase, but they've reported that she sails so hard now that she fears not who follows her. A murmur of pride ripples through the crew. Their work removing the extra decks has paid off, turning the Fancy into a vessel that can outrun even the company's warships. But speed alone won't make us rich, Every says. I've learned of an opportunity, a big one. Now he has everyone's attention, hangovers momentarily forgotten. From the mouth of the Red Sea, a pilgrim fleet will soon return from Mecca, ships laden with treasures and concubines from the Islamic world, bound for India. You glance at Samuel, who nods slightly. This is significant. The largest and most prized vessel in this convoy, Every continues, belongs to the Mughal emperor himself, Aurangzeb. It's called the Ganji Sawai, the exceeding treasure. The name alone sends a ripple of excitement through the crew. Every lets it build before continuing. Gentlemen, the elegant ruling classes of India adorn themselves with gemstones and gold. This ship will be carrying more wealth than most of you can imagine, enough to make each man here richer than he ever dreamed possible. You can feel it, the shift in energy, the collective hunger that sweeps through the assembled pirates. Even the most hungover men stand straighter now. We set sail in 3 days, Every announces. Prepare the ship, mend the sails, check the cannons. This is our moment. As the crew disperses, buzzing with excitement, you turn to Samuel. Can we really take on a Mughal treasure ship? Won't it be heavily guarded? Samuel's face is serious. Aye, it will. But Every's not stupid. He wouldn't suggest this if he didn't think we could succeed. Over the next few days, the Fancy undergoes a transformation. The crew works with newfound purpose, repairing damage from the long journey, reinforcing weakened timbers, patching sails, and meticulously checking each cannon. You're assigned to work with the gunner, a scarred veteran named Harris, who treats the ship's cannons like beloved children. These beauties, he tells you as you help him polish a cannon barrel, will be the difference between life and death, wealth and poverty. How many do we have, you ask? 46 guns, Harris replies with pride, more than enough to deal with merchant vessels, even armed ones. You're not entirely convinced, but keep your doubts to yourself. During these preparations, the crew continues to explore the island. Some men venture into the clicking jungles where they encounter Malagasy natives who regard the pirates with cautious curiosity. You're part of a small group that travels inland one day, ostensibly to hunt for fresh meat, but really to escape the constant work aboard ship. The jungle is unlike anything you've experienced. Dense, humid, alive with sounds and smells that have no equivalent in England. Your group stumbles upon a Malagasy village where, after some initially tense moments, the locals welcome you. Through a mixture of broken English, gestures and improvised sign language, you establish a primitive form of communication. The village chief, a dignified man with intricate scars decorating his arms, seems particularly interested in your weapons. He points to your pistol, then mimics shooting. I think he wants to trade, says one of your companions, a former merchant sailor named Roberts. For what, you ask? The answer comes when the chief gestures to a pen containing several cattle. The message is clear: guns for beef. Roberts considers this, then nods. Tell Every. This could be useful. Fresh meat before a long voyage is worth its weight in gold. When you return to the Fancy and report the encounter, Every immediately grasps the opportunity. The next day, he personally leads a delegation back to the village, bringing several old muskets and powder. He returns with 5 cattle, which are promptly slaughtered and prepared for the journey ahead. Smart move, Samuel comments as you both watch the meat being salted and stored. Meat will keep us strong. We'll need our strength for what's coming. The morning of departure arrives with perfect sailing conditions, clear skies and a steady wind. The crew, now rested and provisioned, works with practiced efficiency to prepare the Fancy for sea. As the anchor comes up and the sails unfurl to catch the wind, you feel a strange mixture of excitement and dread. Madagascar, for all its wildness, had begun to feel like a haven. Ahead lies uncertainty, danger, and possibly unimaginable wealth. Every stands at the helm, his face set with determination as the Fancy glides out of the harbour. Other pirate vessels dip their flags in salute as you pass, a sign of respect for a captain who's quickly building a fearsome reputation. Once clear of the bay, Every sets a course northwest toward the Horn of Africa. The crew falls into the familiar rhythm of life at sea. Watches change, meals are served, maintenance continues. But there's a different energy now, a sense of purpose that wasn't present during the journey from Europe. "What do you know about this Mughal emperor?" you ask Samuel one evening as you both lean against the rail, watching the sunset paint the waves in gold and crimson. "Aurangzeb?" Samuel shakes his head. "Only that he's fabulously wealthy and powerful. They say his empire is larger than all of Europe combined. And we're going to steal from him? Doesn't sound wise." Samuel turns to look at you, his face serious in the fading light. "Nothing about this life is wise, lad, but that's why the rewards are so great. The greater the risk, the greater the prize." Weeks pass as the Fancy rounds the Horn of Africa and enters the Red Sea. The heat becomes oppressive, a dry, relentless baking that's different from the humid warmth of Madagascar. Men work shirtless, their skin turning brick red despite years of exposure to the sun. Every orders gun drills daily now. Under Harris's watchful eye, the gun crews practice loading, aiming, and firing with increasingly impressive speed. Without actual gunpowder, a precious resource saved for real battles, they go through the motions, developing the muscle memory that could mean the difference between victory and disaster. 7 volleys in 3 minutes, Harris announces proudly after one particularly successful drill. "Keep that up and nothing on these waters can stand against us." But the Mughal treasure fleet isn't the only concern. The waters around the Horn of Africa are patrolled not just by the East India Company, but by ships from various nations, all potential threats to a vessel flying no recognized flag. The tension reaches its peak when, just days after entering the Red Sea, the lookout spots 3 ships on the horizon flying company colours. "Battle stations." Every orders, his voice carrying across the deck. Your heart hammers in your chest as you run to your assigned gun. Through gaps in the gun ports, you can see the company vessels growing larger as they approach, their gun ports open, ready for action. "They're closing fast," Harris mutters beside you. "Steady now." But Every has other plans. Instead of turning to fight, he orders more sail. The Fancy leaps forward like a living thing, catching a favourable wind and pulling away from the pursuit. For hours, the chase continues. The company ships are well built and fast, but the Fancy, stripped down and sleek, gradually increases the distance between them. By nightfall, the pursuers are merely smudges on the horizon. By morning, they're gone entirely. See, Samuel says with a grin as you both watch the empty horizon behind you. Fastest ship on the ocean. Every maintains the punishing pace for days, driving the Fancy deeper into the Red Sea. The coastline to the west changes, becoming more barren, more alien. This is a part of the world few European sailors ever see. Finally, the ship reaches a volcanic island that Every identifies as Perim, positioned at a strategic choke point. Here, he announces, the Fancy will wait for the Mughal treasure fleet to pass. They must come this way, he explains to the assembled crew. The convoy will return from Mecca through these waters. We'll let them pass, then fall upon them from behind. It's a solid plan, but as the Fancy drops anchor in the lee of the island, you notice Samuel looking troubled. What's wrong? You ask as the two of you help secure the sails. Nothing, he says, then sighs. Just thinking about what's ahead. Taking merchant ships is one thing. Taking on a Mughal treasure fleet is something else entirely. Having second thoughts? Samuel laughs, but there's little humour in it. Too late for that, isn't it? We're all in this together now. The waiting begins. Days pass with little to do except maintain the ship and scan the horizon for sails. The volcanic island offers little diversion, just black rock and stunted vegetation baking under the merciless sun. Some men grow restless. Arguments break out over trivial matters. Every, recognizing the danger of idle hands, keeps the crew busy with endless drills and tasks. Then, a week into the wait, the lookout spots sails to the north, not the expected Mughal fleet, but something else. As the vessels draw closer, a shock runs through the crew. Pirates, 5 ships, approaching in loose formation. Are they friendly? You ask Samuel as Every orders the crew to battle readiness just in case. We'll find out soon enough. Every orders a flag raised, not the English colours used to fool merchant vessels, but a simple white flag, a request for parley. The lead ship among the newcomers responds in kind. An hour later, their captain comes aboard the Fancy in a small boat. You're on deck when he arrives, and the sight makes your breath catch. This is a pirate from storybooks, tall, flamboyantly dressed, with pistols crossed over his chest and a curved sword at his hip. "Who's that?" you whisper to a nearby sailor. The man looks at you in disbelief. "You don't know? That's Thomas Tew himself, the legend." Every receives Tew with formal courtesy, and the two captains disappear into the great cabin for private discussions. The crew waits anxiously, wondering what this means for their plans. Hours later, Every emerges, his face impossible to read. He calls the crew together. "Gentlemen," he begins, "I've conferred with Captain Tew of the ship AMD and the other captains in his fleet. It seems we're not the only ones with designs on the Mughal treasure." A murmur runs through the assembled men. "But rather than compete," Every continues, "we've agreed to join forces. Combined, we'll have 6 ships and over 400 men." The crew erupts in cheers. With numbers like that, the treasure fleet doesn't stand a chance. And, Every adds, once the noise dies down, "The other captains have agreed that I will serve as admiral of our combined fleet." This brings another round of cheers. It's a tremendous honour and recognition of Every's growing reputation. To be placed in command above even Thomas Tew, a pirate whose exploits are legendary, is no small thing. That evening, a council is held aboard the Fancy. The captains of all 6 ships gather to plan their attack. From your position on deck, you can hear their voices rising and falling, occasionally punctuated by laughter or a fist pounding on the table for emphasis. "This is big," Samuel says, joining you at the rail. "Bigger than anything I've seen in 15 years at sea." "Good big or bad big?" you ask. Samuel considers this. Hard to say. More ships means more firepower, but it also means more ways things can go wrong. More captains means more egos. But Every's in charge. Aye, for now. Pirates are fickle creatures. Loyalty lasts only as long as the success does. The council concludes late in the night. The next morning, Every addresses the crew again. The plan is set, he announces. We form a blockade across the strait. When the Mughal fleet appears, we attack in coordinated waves. No ship escapes, no treasure is missed. It's a simple strategy, but effective. With 6 ships, they can cover the entire passable width of the strait. And when do we expect them? Someone calls out. Every smile is predatory. Any day now. Keep your powder dry and your eyes sharp. The waiting resumes, but with 5 additional ships anchored nearby, the mood is different. There's a festive atmosphere as boats travel between vessels, crews mingle, and stories are exchanged. Pirates who've raided across different oceans share techniques, boast of conquests, and form new alliances. You find yourself in a boat headed for Chew's ship one afternoon, part of a group sent to trade some of your excess gunpowder for their rum. The AMD is smaller than the Fancy, but no less formidable. As you climb aboard, you're struck by the different feel of the vessel. It's run with a looser discipline than Every ship. The men more boisterous, the atmosphere more chaotic. Chew himself appears on deck as your transaction concludes. Up close, he's even more impressive, a natural commander whose mere presence draws all eyes. So you're Every's men, he says, looking your group over. He runs a tight ship, I hear. Tight enough, replies your group's leader, a seasoned pirate named Walsh. Chew nods approvingly. Good, we'll need discipline for what's ahead. The Mughals won't surrender their treasure without a fight. As your group prepares to return to the Fancy, Chew adds casually, "Tell your captain the wind's changing. I can smell it. The fleet will come soon." Sure enough, that night the wind shifts, blowing steadily from the north. Every orders the Fancy to battle readiness. No one sleeps much, every man too keyed up, too aware of what might appear with the dawn. Morning reveals an empty horizon, but Every doesn't relax the watch. By midday, still nothing. By evening, frustration begins to set in. Was Chew wrong? Has the fleet taken another route? Then, as the sun sets and darkness begins to fall, the lookout's cry rings out. Sails, northern horizon. Many sails. Every is on the quarterdeck in an instant. Telescope trained on the distant shapes. His expression shifts from concentration to satisfaction. "Signal the fleet," he orders. The Mughal convoy has arrived. The Fancy's lanterns flash messages to the other pirate ships. In response, dim lights flicker across the water as the pirates prepare to spring their trap. But as full darkness descends, something unexpected happens. The lights of the Mughal fleet, which had been growing closer, begin to fade. They're changing course, using the cover of night to slip past the pirate blockade. Damnation, Every curses. They've spotted us. Orders fly across the deck. Anchors are raised, sails unfurled. The pirates give chase, but in the darkness, with an enemy executing evasive maneuvers, it's nearly impossible to maintain contact. By dawn, the bulk of the Mughal convoy has vanished, escaping into the open ocean. But not all of them. The lookout spots 2 stragglers, massive ships that have fallen behind the main fleet. The Fat Muhammad and the Ganj-e-Sawai, Every announces after studying them through his telescope. The escort and the treasure ship itself, they haven't escaped yet. A new chase begins. The pirate fleet, led by the Fancy, surges in pursuit of the 2 Mughal vessels. The sun climbs higher, beating down on men already exhausted from a sleepless night. On the deck of the AMD, Thomas Tew raises the black flag, a declaration of piratical intent and a promise of no quarter. His ship pulls ahead of the others, closing rapidly on the Fat Muhammad. From your position on the Fancy, you watch as the AMD opens fire. The Fat Muhammad returns fire, and for a brief, terrible moment it seems like Tew's gambit has failed. Then tragedy strikes. A cannonball from the Mughal ship tears across Chu's abdomen. Even from a distance you can see the horrific wound. See Chu's innards spill into his own hands as he collapses to the deck. My God, you whisper, bile rising in your throat. The AMD falls back in disarray, its captain mortally wounded. The Fat Muhammad seizes the opportunity to capture some of Chu's crew before continuing its flight. Every watching this unfold sets his jaw. Full sail, he orders. We're taking them both. The Fancy surges forward, leaving the other pirate ships behind. With her superior speed, she closes the gap on the wounded Mughal vessels, hour by hour. Night falls again, but the chase continues. No one sleeps. Every man knows what's at stake. When dawn breaks, the Fancy has closed to within striking distance of the Fat Muhammad. Every gives the order to open fire, and the ship's guns roar to life. After some resistance, the Fat Muhammad surrenders. Every frees its prisoners, including Chu's captured men, and plunders its treasure. £40,000 worth of goods are transferred to the Fancy, but the true prize, the Ganges Sawai, still sails ahead. Do we continue the chase? Asks Dawson, the quartermaster. Every's response is immediate. Of course. We didn't come all this way for the appetizer. So the pursuit continues. The Fancy, now heavily laden with Fat Muhammad's treasure, still manages to close the gap on the Ganges Sawai. It takes days, the Mughal ship fighting for every mile, but finally the moment of truth arrives. As the Fancy pulls within range, you get your first clear look at the Ganges Sawai. It's enormous, far larger than the Fancy. Through a borrowed telescope, you count at least 62 guns. The deck swarms with hundreds of armed men. We're outnumbered 5 to 1, you say to Samuel, unable to keep the fear from your voice. Samuel nods grimly, and they have twice our firepower. Then why are we doing this? It's suicide. Before Samuel can answer, Every gives the order to prepare for battle. The Fancy's gun ports open, cannons run out. Every man takes his station, fully aware of the odds against them. You look at Every, standing tall on the quarterdeck. His face shows no fear, no doubt, only determination. He can't resist, Samuel says, following your gaze. No true pirate could. That ship represents everything we've ever dreamed of. Enough wealth to vanish forever, to live like kings. As the Fancy moves into firing position, the tension aboard ship is thick enough to cut with a knife. This is the moment every pirate aboard has been sailing towards since the mutiny all those months ago. Every raises his hand, ready to give the order that will commit you all to battle against overwhelming odds. The fate of every man aboard hangs on what happens in the next few minutes. Fire, Every shouts, and the world explodes into chaos. The Fancy's broadside tears through the air and you hold your breath, waiting to see the impact. The Ganges Sawai absorbs the volley, its massive hull shuddering but holding. Immediately, the Mughal ship prepares to return fire, gun ports opening along its side like a row of hungry mouths. "Brace!" Harris shouts beside you, and you grip the nearest support, preparing for the devastating reply. But it never comes. Instead, a tremendous explosion rocks the Ganges Sawai. One of their cannons has malfunctioned catastrophically, erupting in a shower of deadly metal and flame. Even from the Fancy, you can see the confusion spreading across the enemy deck as mangled gunners are pulled from the flames. "That's fortune smiling on us, lads," Every bellows from the quarterdeck. "Reload and fire at will." The gun crews work with frenzied efficiency, ramming powder and shot down smoking barrels. The Fancy's cannons roar again, and this time a fateful cannonball strikes the main mast of the Ganji Sawai. The giant wooden pillar cracks, and the rigging begins to topple, splintering as it comes down. "My God," Samuel breathes beside you. "We might actually win this." The Mughal ship, its sailing power crippled and gun deck in chaos, begins to lose momentum. The Fancy pulls closer, close enough now to see individual faces on the enemy deck. You can make out elaborate uniforms, turbans, the glint of fine weapons. These aren't simple sailors. They're elite guards protecting their emperor's treasure. Prepare to board. Every shouts, and grappling hooks appear in the hands of the most battle-ready pirates. Your heart hammers against your ribs. You've never boarded an enemy vessel before, never engaged in the kind of hand-to-hand combat that's about to erupt. The pistol in your belt and the short sword at your side suddenly feel inadequate against the hundreds of defenders waiting on the Ganj Sawai. "Stay close to me," Samuel tells you, checking his own weapons. "Do exactly as I do, and we might live through this." The ships draw alongside each other, the Fancy now dwarfed by its massive opponent. Grappling hooks sail through the air, biting into the Mughal ship's rail, pulling the vessels together with creaking reluctance. "Board!" Every shouts, and the pirates surge forward, climbing across the narrow gap between ships, swarming up the sides of the Ganji Sawai like ants on sugar. You follow Samuel, scrambling over the rail and landing on the enemy deck in a crouch. Immediately, the world dissolves into chaos. The air fills with desperate shouts in unfamiliar languages, the sharp crack of pistols, the clash of steel on steel. Through plumes of gunsmoke, you see your fellow pirates charging through the Mughal defenders. Despite being outnumbered, the pirates fight with the ferocity of men who know defeat means death. Every himself is in the thick of it, pistol in one hand, sword in the other, cutting a path toward the captain's quarters. A defender rushes at you, curved sword raised high. Time seems to slow. You've never killed a man before, never really thought about what it would mean to do so, but your body reacts before your mind can catch up. You sidestep, bringing your own blade up in a desperate parry. The clash sends shockwaves up your arm. Samuel appears beside you, driving his sword into your attacker's side. The man falls with a cry that will haunt your dreams for years to come. "Keep moving," Samuel shouts, already engaging another defender. Standing still gets you killed. The battle rages for what feels like hours. The Mughal defenders fight bravely at first, but as more pirates swarm aboard from the Fancy and the other pirate ships that have finally caught up, their resistance begins to crumble. A pivotal moment comes when a group of pirates breaks through to what appears to be the Mughal captain's position. From your place near the mainmast, you can't see exactly what happens, but a ripple of confusion passes through the defenders. Orders stop coming. Organization dissolves into individual skirmishes. The captain's abandoned his post, someone shouts. The cowards run below. Whether true or not, the effect is immediate. The Mughal defenders, already reeling from the loss of their mainmast and the explosion on their gun deck, begin to falter. Some throw down their weapons, others retreat to defensive positions around hatches and doorways. After hours of bloody battle, an eerie silence falls over the Ganji Sawai. The fighting hasn't completely stopped. There are still pockets of resistance, but the outcome is no longer in doubt. The pirates have taken the upper decks. Every assembles his officers near the shattered remnants of the mainmast. His clothes are spattered with blood, some of it his own from a shallow cut across his cheek, but his eyes are bright with triumph. "Secure the prisoners," he orders, "then find the treasure. Every inch of this ship is to be searched. These muggles are clever. They'll have hidden the best pieces." You find yourself assigned to a search party led by Dawson, the quartermaster. As you descend below decks, the true horror of the battle becomes apparent. Bodies litter the passageways. Defenders mostly, but some pirates too. The air is thick with the metallic scent of blood and the acrid smell of gunpowder. The lower decks of the Ganji Sawai reveal the ship's dual purpose, part war vessel, part luxury transport. You pass cabins fitted with silk hangings and ornate furniture, now shattered and blood-stained. In one room, a golden hookah pipe lies overturned, still releasing wisps of fragrant smoke. "This isn't what we're looking for," Dawson growls, pushing deeper into the ship. Your group reaches a heavy door with elaborate lock mechanisms. Two pirates step forward with axes, breaking through the wood with practiced efficiency. Inside is a sight that steals your breath. Chests and crates stacked floor to ceiling. Dawson pries open the nearest chest, and the room fills with a golden glow. Inside, coins and jewellery glitter in the lantern light, each piece worth more than most sailors would see in a lifetime. "By all that's holy," someone whispers. Dawson's face splits in a grim smile. "And this is just the beginning, lads." As word spreads, more pirates converge on the treasure hold. Chests are broken open, their contents catalogued with surprising discipline. Every appears, his expression carefully neutral as he surveys the growing pile of wealth. "No man takes so much as a coin until all is counted and divided," he declares. "Anyone caught stealing will answer to me personally." No one challenges this. Every's leadership has brought them to the greatest prize in pirate history. His authority now is absolute. The search continues over the next several hours, revealing hidden compartments throughout the ship. The wealth you uncover is staggering. Gold coins by the thousand, silver plate, jeweled ornaments, fine silks, ivory, and spices worth fortunes in European markets. But the treasure isn't the only discovery. As you push deeper into the vessel, your search party encounters a locked cabin from which muffled sounds emerge. Dawson hesitates before ordering it opened. Inside, a group of women huddle together, their fine clothes and jewellery marking them as high-status passengers. Their faces are masks of terror as the pirates enter. "Female pilgrims," Dawson says quietly, returning from Mecca. You notice the women's attire includes hijabs. These are Muslim women of noble birth, possibly related to the Mughal court itself. "Every's to be told immediately," Dawson orders, posting guards at the door. No one enters until he decides what's to be done. As you return to the main deck to report the discovery, you pass other groups of pirates leading captured sailors to central collection points. Some pirates are already employing brutal methods to extract information about additional treasure, burning captives with slow matches, applying thumb screws, or simply beating them until they talk. You try not to look, try not to hear the screams, but they follow you up to the deck where the evening sun casts long shadows across the blood-stained planks. Every receives the news about the female pilgrims with an unreadable expression. He disappears below decks for nearly an hour before returning. "They're not to be harmed," is all he says on the matter, but you notice he doesn't meet anyone's eyes when he says it. Night falls on the captured Ganji Sawai. Lanterns and torches cast wavering light across the scene as pirates continue the methodical process of transferring treasure to the Fancy and the other pirate vessels that have now caught up. The work is exhausting but exhilarating. Every chest, every bag contains wealth beyond imagination. You're helping load a crate of silver onto a boat for transfer when you notice Samuel standing at the rail, staring out at the black ocean. "We did it," you say, joining him. "We actually did it." Samuel doesn't immediately respond. When he does, his voice is unnaturally flat. We did. What's wrong? We're rich, richer than we ever dreamed possible." Samuel turns to look at you, his face half illuminated by a nearby torch. "You ever wonder about the cost? Not in blood, that's the price of our trade. But the other cost. You don't understand, and your confusion must show. The things happening below decks right now," Samuel continues, "the things Every's turning a blind eye to, that's the real price we're paying." Before you can ask what he means, a commotion erupts nearby. Two pirates are arguing over a jeweled dagger, each claiming it as personal loot rather than part of the communal treasure. Dawson appears as if from nowhere, separating the men with practiced authority. Enough all valuable items go into the common stock for fair division. You know the articles. The men grumble, but surrender the dagger. Dawson's role as quartermaster includes maintaining discipline and ensuring fair treatment of the crew, particularly important now, with temptation all around. The work continues through the night and into the next day. By midday, it becomes clear that the Fancy alone cannot carry all the plundered wealth. Every orders some of the treasure distributed to the other pirate ships, but keeps the lion's share for his own crew. On the third day after the capture, Every makes a fateful decision. With the treasure secured and the Ganji Sawai stripped of everything valuable, he orders the prisoners released and the Mughal ships set adrift. "We're not taking prisoners," you ask Samuel as you watch the battered vessel slowly recede into the distance. "Too many mouths to feed, too many potential mutineers," Samuel replies. "Better for us if they make it back to port and spread the word of what happened here." "Won't that bring the Mughal navy down on us?" Samuel's laugh is hollow. "By the time they organise a response, we'll be halfway around the world. Besides, what navy can hunt a ship that flies no flag, that calls no nation home?" He's right, you realise. The pirate's greatest advantage is mobility, the ability to strike and vanish, to be nowhere and everywhere. Later that day, Every assembles the crew on the deck of the Fancy, now riding low in the water from the weight of its plundered cargo. "Gentlemen," he begins, "what we have accomplished here will be remembered for generations. The Ganji Sawai carried perhaps the most valuable treasure ever stolen by pirates. Each of you has earned your place in history." A cheer goes up, quickly silenced by Every's raised hand. "According to our articles, the treasure will be divided as follows. As captain, I take 2 shares. Quartermaster Dawson also receives 2 shares. Our specialists, the master, boatswain, and gunner, each receive a share and a half. Other officers get a share and a quarter. All remaining crew receive 1 equal share." There's murmuring at this. Even a single share will amount to more than a lifetime of honest sailors' wages. "Division will begin tomorrow," Every continues. "Until then, extra rum rations for all." This brings the loudest cheer yet. The crew disperses, buzzing with excitement, already planning how they'll spend their newfound wealth. You find yourself by the rail again, trying to comprehend how your life has changed. 6 months ago, you were an ordinary sailor on a legitimate privateering expedition. Now you're a pirate who's participated in the most successful raid in history. Samuel joins you, 2 cups of rum in hand. He passes one to you. "To fortune," he says, raising his cup. "To fortune," you echo, drinking deep. The rum burns pleasantly going down, warming you from the inside. The night is clear, stars winking above like distant jewels. "What will you do with your share?" you ask. Samuel considers this, swirling the rum in his cup. "Buy a small plot of land somewhere quiet. maybe England, maybe the colonies, somewhere with no memory of Samuel the pirate. You'd go back to farming after this? There are worse fates, he says. What about you? The question catches you off guard. You haven't really thought beyond surviving the raid. I don't know. Enjoy it, I suppose. Samuel's expression turns serious. Word of advice, don't flash your wealth. That's how pirates get caught. Be smart, be patient, make your fortune last. The next day, the formal division of treasure begins. It's a meticulous process, overseen by Every and Dawson. Each item of value is assessed, catalogued, and assigned to the common stock. Some personal effects, clothing, books, items of religious significance, are set aside as not worth counting. But the wealth is beyond anything you could have imagined. Chests of shining emeralds, Arabian gold coins by the thousand, ivory tusks, rolls of the finest silk. When the final tally is announced, it's almost incomprehensible over a lifetime of sailors' wages for each man. Every takes his massive share without ceremony. Quartermaster Dawson divides the remainder with mathematical precision, calling each man forward to receive his portion. When your name is called, you step up to the makeshift counting table. Dawson looks you in the eye as he pushes a heavy leather sack toward you. Use it wisely, is all he says before calling the next name. Back at your berth, you open the sack in private. Gold and silver pieces spill onto your bunk, along with several small gems and a rolled parchment detailing your exact share. The total is enough to buy a modest estate to live comfortably for decades without working another day. You're still staring at the wealth when Samuel finds you. "Put that away," he hisses, glancing around to ensure no one else is watching. "Are you trying to get your throat cut?" Hastily, you scoop the treasure back into its sack, concealing it beneath your hammock. "Sorry, it's just... I know." Samuel sighs, his irritation fading. "Overwhelming, isn't it? Just be careful. Not every man aboard has your honest nature." Over the next few days, the mood aboard the Fancy shifts. The shared purpose that united the crew during the raid begins to fracture, replaced by individual concerns. Men who've spent lives in desperate poverty now possess more wealth than they know how to manage. Some drink heavily, celebrating their good fortune. Others become paranoid, guarding their shares with obsessive vigilance. Every, sensing the changing atmosphere, announces the ship's next destination, a port where the crew can enjoy their newfound riches in safety. "We've taken the greatest prize any pirate could hope for," he declares from the quarterdeck. "Now we must ensure we live to enjoy it." We sail for Nassau, a quiet backwater in the Bahamas, known for its corrupt governor and lack of naval presence. A perfect haven for pirates flush with wealth and seeking to disappear. The journey is long, nearly 7 months of sailing across the Indian Ocean, around Africa and across the Atlantic. The crew's initial euphoria fades, replaced by the mundane reality of life at sea. There are still watches to stand, sails to trim, decks to scrub. Along the way, the Fancy makes several stops. Near Madagascar, the ship takes on 90 slaves, not for treasure this time, but as an investment to be sold later. It's a grim reminder that despite the democratic aspects of pirate life, many of these men still view human beings as commodity. Later, the ship pauses to hunt sea turtles, providing a welcome change from the monotonous diet of salt meat and hardtack. The massive creatures are hauled aboard, kept alive until needed, then butchered for their meat and eggs. During these long months, you notice changes in Samuel. He grows quieter, more withdrawn. Sometimes you catch him staring at the horizon with an unreadable expression. Are you unwell? you ask him one evening as you both stand the night watch. "Oh no," he says after a long pause, "just thinking about the future, about choices." "What choices?" "The ones we make, the ones we live with." He turns to look at you directly. "The Ganges Sawai. You know what happened below decks after we took it, don't you?" You shake your head slowly. Every watched as his pirates burned and tortured Indian sailors until they confessed the location of all the treasure, Samuel says, his voice flat. The female pilgrims they were forced upon, repeatedly, for days. Several women slit their own throats or drowned themselves, rather than endure it. Horror washes over you. You'd been busy with the treasure, deliberately avoiding darker corners of the captured ship, but deep down, you'd known, or suspected. "Every could have stopped it," Samuel continues. "He chose not to, and we, all of us, we're part of it now. That blood is on our hands too. You have no answer for this. The weight of it presses down, making the leather sack of treasure hidden in your berth feel suddenly tainted." "When we reach Nassau," Samuel says, "I'm leaving, taking my share and disappearing. I suggest you do the same." 7 months after the Ganges Sawai raid, the Fancy finally sails into the quiet backwater bay of Nassau. The town is little more than a collection of weathered buildings clustered around a natural harbour, but to pirates laden with illegal treasure, it's paradise. Every poses as a slave trader, an identity that raises few questions in the colonies. He bribes the governor with chests of gold and the Fancy itself in exchange for safe hiding. The crew disperses into the decrepit taverns of Nassau, exchanging coins for rum and companionship after months at sea. You follow Samuel's lead, keeping a low profile, spending modestly and making plans for a quiet escape. But one evening, as you share a bottle in a corner of Nassau's dingiest tavern, a stranger enters. He moves differently than the usual clientele, more purposeful, more observant. In his hand is a rolled parchment that he nails to the tavern wall before departing. Curiosity draws a crowd to the document. You and Samuel join them, pushing forward to read the official proclamation from the Lords Justice of England. "We do hereby charge and command all His Majesty's admirals, captains and other officers at sea to seize and take Henry Every, and such as are with him on the ship, to be punished as pirates upon the high seas." An enormous bounty has been set on Every's head. The pirate captain who successfully eluded the East India Company's ships is now the most wanted man in the world. "It's starting," Samuel murmurs. "Time to disappear." That night, the crew of the Fancy begins to fracture completely. Some stay in Nassau, believing distance has made them safe. Most head for corrupt parts of the 13 colonies, where questions are few and bribes effective. Every himself, you learn, has purchased a small ship and plans to return to sea with a handful of trusted men. "What about you?" you ask Samuel as dawn breaks on what will likely be your last day together. "Ireland," he says simply. "Green fields and anonymity. You?" You haven't decided yet, torn between returning to England and the promise of the colonies, but there's something else bothering you, a question you need answered. Do you think it was worth it? Everything we did, the people who suffered, was it worth this? You gesture to the small chest containing your share of the treasure. Samuel doesn't answer immediately. He stares out at the harbour, where the sun is just beginning to gild the water. "Ask me in 20 years, he finally says. "If I'm alive and free, maybe I'll have an answer then." Later that day, you say your goodbyes. Samuel boards a merchant vessel bound for Europe, his wealth concealed in nondescript baggage, his identity shed like an old coat. As for Captain Henry Every, his fate becomes a mystery that will baffle authorities for years to come. Some say he squandered his wealth, others claim he eloped with a Mughal princess, still others insist he governs a free colony of pirates back on Madagascar. The truth, like the man himself, vanishes into the mists of history, taking the greatest pirate treasure ever stolen with him. You find yourself in a small tavern on the outskirts of Philadelphia, 3 months after parting ways with Samuel. Your gold is carefully hidden, some sewn into the lining of your clothes, the rest buried beneath the floorboards of the rented room above the tavern. You've been careful, spending only what's necessary, keeping your head down. The tavern door swings open, letting in a gust of autumn air and a merchant sailor whose face is vaguely familiar. You tense, hand instinctively moving toward the knife in your boot, but the sailor takes no notice of you, settling instead at the bar with his back turned. The serving girl brings you another ale, and you thank her with a nod. She's pretty, with chestnut hair and a quick smile. In another life, a normal life, you might have courted her, but normal isn't possible anymore, not with the weight of the Ganges Sawai hanging around your neck. You hear about those pirates they caught, a voice carries from a nearby table. The ones who robbed that Indian ship? Your blood turns to ice. Carefully, you take a sip of ale, keeping your expression neutral while straining to hear more. "Aye," his companion replies. "Brought to London in chains, I heard. Execution dock awaits 'em. Every wasn't among 'em, though. No, that devil's still free. £1,000 bounty on his head." £1,000. The sum is staggering, enough to tempt even a wealthy man. You finish your ale and slip out of the tavern, heart hammering against your ribs. In your room, you pull out the latest newspaper you've managed to acquire, scanning again for any mention of the Fancy's crew. There it is, a small article detailing the arrest of Joseph Dawson, the quartermaster, and a handful of other crew members who had returned to Britain. They're to be tried publicly, an example to all who might consider piracy. You sit heavily on your narrow bed. Dawson, caught, the man who had stood beside Every through the mutiny, who had divided the greatest pirate treasure in history with mathematical precision, now faces the gallows, and with him secrets that could implicate every man who sailed on the Fancy. Sleep eludes you that night. You stare at the ceiling, mind racing with possibilities. Perhaps it's time to move again, to find somewhere even more remote. The colonies are vast, with plenty of places a man could disappear. Or perhaps you should follow Samuel's path. Find a ship bound for Europe. Then make your way to the green hills of Ireland or the Scottish Highlands. The next morning brings news that settles the question. A broadsheet tacked to the tavern wall announces the execution date for the pirate Dawson and his villainous companions. The trial is already over. Swift justice for men who dared attack the Mughal Empire's prized ship. But it's not this news that chills you. It's the smaller notice beneath, detailing the diplomatic crisis that has erupted between England and the Mughal Empire. Emperor Aurangzeb, it seems, was not content to let the matter rest with the capture of a few pirates. Upon learning of the attack, the notice reads, the Mughal emperor sent his army to occupy 5 key ports for English trade in India: Bombay, Surat, Broach, Agra and Ahmedabad, effectively cutting off English trade until Henry Every is caught and executed for his crimes. The implications are staggering. One pirate raid has paralysed trade between nations, threatening the economic foundation of the growing British Empire. No wonder the bounty on Every's head is so high. No wonder the authorities are hunting down every last member of his crew. You make your decision before finishing your breakfast. By nightfall, you've paid for passage on a merchant vessel bound for Charleston, the first step in putting as much distance as possible between yourself and the spreading news of the Fancy's exploits. On board the merchant ship, you keep to yourself, posing as a failed shopkeeper seeking a fresh start. It's a common enough story in the colonies, and no one questions it too deeply. But 2 days into the voyage, you notice a passenger watching you with unnerving intensity. A lean, hard-faced man with the bearing of someone accustomed to violence. You avoid him as best you can, but on the 3rd night, he corners you on the deck as you take some air before retiring. "I know what you are," he says without preamble. Your hand moves to your knife, but he holds up a placating palm. "Easy, friend. I'm not here to turn you in." "You've mistaken me for someone else," you reply, voice steady despite your racing heart. He smiles thinly. "Have I?" A young man with obvious sea experience who flinches at any mention of India or pirates? Who carries himself like he's constantly watching for danger? Who pays for his passage in brand new Spanish silver? Your mistake hits you like a physical blow. The Spanish silver, part of the Ganji Sawai's treasure, you should have traded it for older coins, should have been more careful. "What do you want?" you ask, hand still on your knife. "Information." The man leans against the rail. "I represent certain interests in London who are most eager to locate Captain Every. I don't know where he is." Perhaps not specifically, but you might know his tendencies, his plans, the places he spoke of fondly. You say nothing, mind racing. Is this a trap, an attempt to trick you into self-incrimination? The man sighs. "Let me be clear. My employers don't care about you or the rest of the crew. They want Every and only Every. Provide useful information and I'm authorized to offer you not just immunity, but a reward." "And if I have nothing to offer?" His smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Then we part ways in Charleston, and I continue my search elsewhere. But consider this, the noose is tightening. Sooner or later, Every will be found. Better to be on the right side of history when that happens." You promise to think about it, a meaningless assurance to end the conversation. That night you lie awake in your narrow berth, turning over your options. You could tell him about Nassau, about Every's plan to purchase a small ship, but that information is months old and likely useless. You could invent something, but lies have a way of unraveling. In the end, you decide on silence. When the ship docks in Charleston, you disembark early and lose yourself in the busy port, leaving the mysterious agent to his fruitless search. For weeks, you move from town to town along the colonial coast, never staying more than a few days in any place. News travels slowly in the colonies, but it travels. In a Philadelphia print shop, you read about the East India Company filing an insurance claim for $350,000 to cover the losses from the Ganj Isawai raid. In a Boston tavern, you overhear sailors discussing the Mughal emperor's demand that the amount be doubled. The world, it seems, won't let the fancy's deed be forgotten, and with each passing day the story grows more elaborate, more mythical. In some versions, Every escaped with a Mughal princess. In others, he's established a pirate kingdom on Madagascar. The truth, whatever it might be, is lost beneath layers of increasingly fantastic rumours. 4 months after Charleston, you find yourself in a small farming community in western Massachusetts. Winter has set in, making travel difficult. You rent a room from a widow who asks few questions and appreciate the forced pause in your constant movement. It's here by the light of a whale oil lamp in your rented room that you finally read a full account of Joseph Dawson's execution. The newspaper is months old, having passed through many hands before reaching this remote settlement. Before the gallows, the account reads, one of the pirates told the eager crowds that the crew deserved death and that the inhuman treatment and merciless tortures inflicted on the poor Indians and their women still affects my soul. You close your eyes, memories flooding back, the screams you tried to ignore, the women locked in their cabin, the pirates burning and torturing Indian sailors, the blood-soaked deck of the Ganges Sawai. The article continues, recounting how Dawson and his companions were hanged slowly, strangled on short nooses rather than granted the mercy of a broken neck. Their corpses were left to dangle in the tide and wither into ghoulish forms on the grey coast of the Thames, a warning to all who might consider the pirates' path. Is this justice? You wonder, does their death balance the scales for what happened on the Ganges Sawai? And what about your own role? Smaller perhaps, focused on the treasure rather than the violence, but still part of the whole. The widow calls you down for supper, interrupting your dark thoughts. Her table is simple but welcoming. Fresh bread, rabbit stew, and home-brewed beer. Her two young children stare at you curiously throughout the meal. You're a novelty in their isolated world, a man from distant places who speaks little of his past. Will you tell a story, sir? The younger child, a girl of perhaps 6, asks as the meal concludes. Mother says you've been on ships. You hesitate, then nod. But the story you tell is not of the fancy or the Ganges Sawai. Instead, you recall an old sailor's tale from your early days at sea, a harmless adventure involving a whale and a fishing boat. The children listen, wide-eyed, and for a brief moment, you feel almost normal. That night, you dream of Samuel and wonder where he is now. Did he make it to Ireland? Is he living peacefully on his small plot of land, or is he too haunted by the ghosts of the Ganges Sawai? Morning brings unexpected news. A rider has arrived in the settlement with reports from Boston, and among his dispatches is word that authorities in London believe Henry Every may be hiding in the colonies. They say he's using the name Bridgeman now. You overhear as the settlement's men gather around the rider. Benjamin Bridgeman? It's the first you've heard of Every's whereabouts since Nassau. The information is oddly specific. A name, a possible location. Someone from the crew must have talked. Someone close to Every. You pack your few belongings that afternoon. The widow seems disappointed to lose the steady rent, but you pay her extra for her trouble and promise to return in the spring, a lie that sits uncomfortably in your chest. As you mount the horse you've purchased with Mughal gold, the widow's older child, a boy of 9, watches you with serious eyes. You're running from something, he says, with the unnerving directness of children. You pause, uncertain how to respond. Father used to say that you can't outrun yourself, the boy continues. No matter where you go, you're still there. The simple wisdom strikes deeper than the child could know. You nod acknowledgement and spur your horse forward, leaving the settlement behind as snow begins to fall. The winter passes in a blur of small towns and isolated homesteads. You offer labour in exchange for shelter when possible, dipping into your treasure only when necessary. Your hands, once calloused from ropes and sails, develop new calluses from axes and saws. The physical work is a blessing, exhausting enough to bring dreamless sleep. Spring finds you in New York, where ships from Europe bring fresh news and rumours. The manhunt for Henry Every continues, now stretching across 4 continents. Authorities from London to Bombay search for any trace of the pirate captain who orchestrated the most profitable raid in history. Among the news is an interesting diplomatic development. The East India Company has fully compensated the Mughal Emperor for his losses, resolving the crisis that had paralysed English trade with India. The company's influence has only grown through the incident, as the English crown became acutely aware of how vital Indian trade has become to their economy. It's fascinating, isn't it? A well-dressed merchant comments as you both read the notice board near the harbour. One pirate raid nearly toppled trade relations between empires. They're saying in London that the company is now more powerful than ever. The Crown can't afford to let it fail. You murmur agreement, mind elsewhere. If the diplomatic crisis is resolved, perhaps the intensity of the manhunt will diminish. Perhaps, in time, former crew members of the Fancy might be able to live without constantly looking over their shoulders. But your hope is short-lived. The next notice on the board announces new rewards for information leading to the capture of any person involved in the piratical attack upon the Ganges Sawai, property of His Imperial Majesty Aurangzeb. The merchant notices your expression. Were you a sailor during the war with France, perhaps? For a time, you answer carefully. Dangerous business, he says, nodding. My brother served on a merchant vessel, said he'd rather die than go back to sea. The discipline, the risk, not worth any wage. Some don't have many choices, you reply. True enough. The merchant tips his hat. Good day to you. As he walks away, you study the reward notice more carefully. The amounts offered are substantial, enough to tempt former friends into betrayal. The safe anonymity you've cultivated feels suddenly fragile. That evening, in a dockside tavern buzzing with sailors and dock workers, you overhear a conversation that freezes you mid-drink. They caught another one of Every's men, a sailor announces to his companions. In Charlestown, trying to sell emeralds that could only have come from the Ganges Sawai. What happened to him? Someone asks. Shipped back to London in irons. The sailor takes a long drink. Poor bastard will swing by now. Good riddance, another man spits. Those pirates caused nothing but trouble. My cousin lost his position with the company when the Mughals closed the ports. You finish your drink and leave quietly, mind racing. Another crew member caught, the noose tightening once again. How many are left from the original 80? How many are still free? How many still alive? The streets of New York are dark and foggy, perfect for a man who wishes to remain unseen. You walk aimlessly, weighing options that seem increasingly limited. The colonies no longer feel safe. Perhaps it's time to follow Samuel's path after all, find passage to Europe and disappear into the countryside. Lost in thought, you don't notice the footsteps behind you until they're too close. You turn, hand dropping to your knife, but you're too slow. A heavy object strikes the back of your head, and the world goes black. You wake to throbbing pain and the gentle swaying of a ship. For a disorienting moment, you're back on the Fancy, about to face the Ganges Sawai. Then reality reasserts itself. You're lying on the floor of a small cabin, hands bound behind your back. The door opens, and a familiar face enters, the lean, hard-eyed man from the Charleston-bound ship months ago. You're awake. Good. He settles on a stool, regarding you with clinical interest. Apologies for the rough handling. I couldn't risk you running again. What do you want? Your throat is dry, your voice a rasp. The same thing I wanted before, information about Henry Every, but now I have leverage. I told you, I don't know where he is. The man smiles thinly. Perhaps, but you know something, and you'll tell me everything, or you'll face trial alongside Dawson's other companions. Fear coils in your gut. Dawson was executed months ago. Others await trial. The Crown is in no hurry. They'll hang pirates for years to come if necessary. You test your bonds, tight and professional. I'm not a fool. Once I tell you what I know, what's to stop you from turning me in anyway? My word, he says simply, and the fact that my employers truly only want Every. You're incidental, useful only insofar as you lead us to him. And who exactly are your employers? The man hesitates, then shrugs. The East India Company, technically, though this operation has unofficial sanction from higher authorities. It makes sense. The company lost fortunes when the Mughal emperor closed the ports. Their reputation suffered. Their stock price fell. They want Evri as much for revenge as for justice. I'll need guarantees, you say, mind working furiously. Written assurance of immunity. The man laughs. You're not in a position to negotiate, but he considers you for a moment. I can offer you this. Help me find Evri, and I'll ensure you reach any port of your choosing with enough gold to start fresh. No one will know your connection to the fancy. It's not much of a choice. Cooperate or hang. And yet, the thought of betraying Evri, for all his flaws, for all the horror of the Ganges Sawai, sits like poison in your mind. I need time to think, you say. You have until morning, the man replies, standing. We're anchored in the harbour. Consider your options carefully. Alone again, you test your bonds more thoroughly. The knots are expertly tied, the rope high quality. You won't escape that way. The cabin has a small porthole, but it's barely wide enough for a child to squeeze through. The door is undoubtedly locked and guarded. As night falls, you lie on the hard floor, mind racing through possibilities. You could tell the agent about Nassau, about Evri's plan to buy a small ship and return to sea, but that information is nearly a year old now. You could invent a false lead, send them chasing shadows while you find a way to escape. But if they discover the deception, your already precarious position would worsen. Or you could tell them the truth, that you genuinely don't know where Evri is, that the captain kept his plans close, sharing them only with his most trusted men, that the last you saw him was in Nassau, and beyond that, his fate is as much a mystery to you as to them. Morning comes with no clear answer. The agent returns, accompanied by a silent sailor who brings water and hard bread. Well, the agent asks after you've eaten and drunk, have you come to a decision? You meet his eyes steadily. I'll tell you what I know, but it isn't much. For the next hour, you recount everything you can remember about Evri, his habits, his connections, the places he mentioned fondly. You describe Nassau and the corrupt governor who sheltered the Fancy's crew. You explain the division of treasure and Evri's purchase of a small ship. The agent listens intently, occasionally asking questions that probe for details. When you finish, he sits back, expression thoughtful. Is that truly all? All I know, you confirm. Evri wasn't the type to share his innermost thoughts with the common crew. The agent nods slowly. Some of this aligns with other reports. Nassau's governor has already been questioned extensively, but the trail goes cold after Evri left the Bahamas. Then I fulfilled my part of the bargain. Indeed. The agent stands. We'll reach open water by noon. You'll be transferred to another vessel bound for Charleston. From there, you're free to go where you please. Just like that? Just like that. As I said, you're not the prize my employers seek. True to his word, the agent has you transferred to a merchant brig that afternoon. Your hands remain bound until the agent's ship is hull down on the horizon. The captain of the brig, a weathered man with little interest in his unexpected passenger, tells you gruffly that you'll reach Charleston in 3 days, weather permitting. In your small cabin, you sort through what just happened. Did you betray Evri, or did you simply acknowledge facts the authorities likely already knew? Does it matter when the captain himself seems to have vanished without trace? 3 days later, as promised, the brig docks in Charleston. The captain gives you a sealed letter from the agent. Inside is a modest purse of gold coins and a terse note. Our business is concluded. Standing on the dock, watching the brig prepare for its return journey, you feel oddly untethered. The immediate threat has passed, but the shadow of the Ganges Sawai still looms. Somewhere out there, authorities continue to hunt for Henry Every. Somewhere, perhaps Every himself still lives, spending his massive share of the treasure or plotting new ventures. And here you stand, neither fully free nor truly captive, caught in the limbo between your past as a pirate and whatever future awaits. A newspaper vendor calls out the day's headlines and one catches your ear. Pirates executed in Madagascar. French Navy claims victory. You purchase a copy with a small coin. The article details a French naval raid on a pirate settlement in Madagascar. Not the same one where the Fancy had anchored, but similar. The French claim to have executed dozens of pirates and reclaimed stolen goods. The world is changing, you realise. The golden age of piracy, if it can be called that, faces new threats. Empires are extending their reach, enforcing their laws across oceans once considered beyond jurisdiction. As you fold the newspaper and walk away from the docks, a decision crystallises. It's time to truly disappear, not just to hide, but to become someone else entirely. To leave behind not just the name you used aboard the Fancy, but the very identity of a sailor. The inland beckons, vast territories where questions are few and opportunities many, where a man with some gold and a willingness to work might establish himself far from the reach of Admiralty courts and East India Company agents. You purchase supplies, a sturdy horse and a map of the Western Territories. 3 days later, you ride out of Charleston following the trade road that will eventually lead beyond the established colonies into the wilderness beyond. Behind you lie the Fancy, the Ganges Sawai and Henry Every. Ahead, if you're fortunate, lies a future untainted by their shadow. But sometimes, in the quiet of night as you camp beneath unfamiliar stars, you still hear the cannon fire, still see the splintering mainmast of the Mughal treasure ship, still feel the weight of gold in your hands. And you wonder about the true cost of Every's treasure, not just in lives and suffering, but in the haunted futures of the men who sailed with him. Where is Henry Every now? With his treasure never found and his fate unrecorded, the question echoes across oceans and years. Perhaps that's his final victory, to become a legend, a ghost story told on pirate decks, a sailor's tale belted in shanty taverns, or scrolled in the dubious pages of popular books. The most successful pirate in history sailed into myth, leaving behind only whispers and wonder. The Appalachian Mountains rise before you like a green wall, ancient and indifferent to human concerns. Your horse, a sturdy chestnut gelding purchased with Mughal gold, snorts as it picks its way up the narrow trail. 3 weeks have passed since you left Charleston, trading the salt tang of the ocean for the earthy scent of forests and meadows. At night, you sleep beneath stars that look oddly different without the gentle rocking of a ship beneath you. The ground remains stubbornly still, a constancy that sometimes wakes you from uneasy dreams of pitching decks and cannon fire. You've been following the trader's route, a rough path that winds through valleys and mountain passes toward the Ohio country. Settlements grow sparser, trading posts replacing proper towns. At each stop, you listen more than you speak, gathering information about the territories ahead. Indians west of the mountains don't take kindly to lone settlers. A grizzled trapper warns you over a shared fire at a trading post nestled in a narrow valley. You'd be wise to join a settlement. Safety in numbers. Any recommendations? You ask, passing him the bottle of corn whiskey you'd purchased earlier. He takes a long pull before answering. There's a place 3 days west of here, Valley Settlement. Mix of folks, some English, some Scots-Irish, even a few Germans. They keep to themselves, don't ask too many questions about a man's past. You nod, committing the directions to memory. Sounds promising. The trapper studies you with weathered eyes. Running from something, aren't you? Law trouble back east? Your hand instinctively moves toward your knife, but the trapper waves it away. Easy, friend. I'm not asking for details. Half the men out here have something in their past they'd rather forget. Why do you think we live in the wilderness instead of comfortable towns? Later, as you lay in your bedroll listening to the night sounds of the forest, you consider the trapper's words. Is that what you're doing? Joining the company of men fleeing their pasts? But then, what alternative exists? You can't return to sea, where Every's legend has made any former crewman a valuable target. You can't settle in the established colonies, where the law's reach grows longer each year. The path forward seems clear, if not exactly chosen. 3 days later, following the trapper's directions, you crest a ridge and look down upon a small settlement nestled in a fertile valley. A dozen log cabins cluster around fields of corn and wheat. Smoke rises from chimneys, carrying the promising scent of cooking food. A stream cuts through the valley, widening into a small pond near the settlement's edge. It looks peaceful, isolated, a place where a man might disappear. Your reception at the settlement is cautious but not hostile. The headman, a broad-shouldered Scotsman named McTavish, asks direct questions about your skills, but blessedly few about your background. Can you farm? He asks, as he shows you an empty cabin at the settlement's edge. I've never tried, you admit. But I'm not afraid of hard work. McTavish nods. That's a start. What about carpentry, smithing, hunting? I know ships, sailing, navigation, repairs. I can fish, mend nets, tie a dozen different knots. I'm decent with a musket, though I've mostly used pistols. Not much call for sailing here, McTavish says with a dry chuckle, but a man who can work with his hands can learn. Winter's coming in a few months. We need all the help we can get with the harvest and preparations. That evening, you join the settlement for a communal meal in the open area between cabins. Children dart between adults, dogs scavenge for scraps, and conversation flows as freely as the home-brewed beer. You keep to yourself, nodding politely when introduced, but volunteering little. A woman named Sarah, McTavish's daughter, brings you a wooden bowl filled with venison stew. She's perhaps 30, with streaks of grey already threading her dark hair and lines around her eyes that speak of hardship endured. You're a sailor, she says, not a question. You nod, spooning stew into your mouth to avoid elaborating. My husband was a sailor, she continues. Merchant Navy. His ship went down in a storm off the Carolina coast 3 years ago. I'm sorry. She shrugs, the gesture too stiff to be casual. Life takes what it takes. I have my son, my father, this community. She nods toward a boy of perhaps 10, playing with other children near the fire. Thomas has never seen the ocean. Sometimes I think that's for the best. You follow her gaze. The boy, Thomas, is laughing as he chases another child around the fire. He looks happy, unburdened by the weight of his father's fate. Sometimes a fresh start is a gift, you offer. Sarah's eyes sharpen, studying you with uncomfortable intensity. Is that what you're looking for? A fresh start? Before you can answer, she's called away to help serve more food, but her question lingers in the air between you, demanding an answer you're not sure you have. The next weeks establish a rhythm to your new life. Days are filled with physical labor, helping with the harvest, repairing cabins before winter, hunting game to smoke and preserve. Your body, already hardened by years at sea, develops new strengths, new calluses. You learn to swing an axe, to track deer through dense forest, to read the land as once you read the sea. Evenings bring the community together for meals and stories. You speak little of your own past, crafting a simple tale of a merchant sailor who tired of the sea. No one presses for more. In this frontier settlement, it seems, the present matters more than the past. Sarah and Thomas become fixtures in your daily life. Her cabin is nearest to yours, and she often invites you to share evening meals. Thomas, curious and energetic, peppers you with questions about ships and distant lands. You answer carefully, editing your experiences to remove any hint of piracy or violence. "Did you ever see whales?" Thomas asks one evening as you help him carve a small wooden boat. "Many times," you reply, guiding his hands with the knife, pods of them breaching near the Cape of Good Hope, like mountains rising from the sea, then crashing back down with a splash you could hear for miles. "I want to see a whale someday." You study the boy's eager face, so open and untroubled. "Maybe you will, but the sea can be dangerous. There's much to be said for solid ground beneath your feet." As autumn deepens, bringing brilliant colours to the forest and crisp frost to the mornings, news from the outside world reaches the settlement. A trader arrives with supplies from the east: salt, ammunition, cloth, and a handful of newspapers from Philadelphia and New York. That evening, as the community gathers to hear the traders' accounts of life beyond their valley, you hang back, nursing a mug of beer and keeping to the shadows. But your ears prick up when the conversation turns to pirates. They're saying the golden age of piracy is ending, the trader announces, warming to his audience. Navy ships patrol the Caribbean now like never before. The old pirate havens, New Providence, Port Royal, they're under government control. "Good riddance," someone calls out. "Pirates are nothing but thieves and murderers." "Aye, mostly," the trader agrees. "But there are stories. That English pirate, the one who took the Indian treasure ship, Every, was it? They never caught him. Some say he retired with his wealth, living like a king in some remote corner of the world." Your hands tighten around your mug. Every's name, spoken so casually, sends a jolt through you like a physical touch. "I heard he died penniless," another settler counters, "cheated out of his fortune by crooked merchants." The trader shrugs. Who knows the truth of it? But his raid changed things. The East India Company used it to gain more power from the crown, more ships, more authority to police the seas. Piracy has become a hanging offence across all nations. Even foreign pirates are brought to London for trial now. The conversation moves on to other topics, but you remain frozen, transported momentarily back to the blood-soaked deck of the Ganges Sawai. Every's face appears in your mind, not the cold, determined captain giving orders before the battle, but the man afterward watching impassively as his pirates tortured prisoners for information about hidden treasure. You slip away from the gathering, needing solitude. Outside, the night air is sharp with coming winter, stars pricking the black sky with cold fire. You breathe deeply, trying to ground yourself in the present. "Are you unwell?" You turn to find Sarah standing a few paces away, her face half shadowed in the darkness. "Just needed some air," you reply. She moves closer, wrapping her shawl tighter against the chill. "The talk of pirates bothered you?" It's not a question, and you don't treat it as one. You simply wait, wondering how much she's guessed, how much she suspects. "My husband used to say there's a thin line between a sailor and a pirate," she continues when you don't respond. "That hunger and desperation can push good men across it. Your husband sounds like he was a wise man. He had his moments." She studies you in the starlight. "Whatever you did, whoever you were before you came here, it doesn't matter now. This place, it gives second chances, if you want them." Before you can respond, Thomas calls for her from the doorway of their cabin. With a final, searching look, she turns away, leaving you alone with the stars and your thoughts. Winter descends on the valley with brutal efficiency. Snow piles against cabin walls, ice forms thick crusts on the stream, and the world narrows to the essential tasks of survival: keeping warm, keeping fed, keeping alive until spring. The settlement adapts with practiced resilience. Hunting parties venture out on clear days, returning with deer and wild turkeys. Women work spinning wheels by firelight, turning wool into yarn. Men repair tools and tell stories of better seasons. You find unexpected peace in this enforced stillness. For the first time since the Ganges Sawai, your mind quiets. The constant vigilance, the looking over your shoulder, these habits slowly loosen their grip. In their place grows something unfamiliar, a sense of belonging. Sarah and Thomas are central to this feeling. Their cabin becomes a refuge from the bitter cold, a place where simple companionship fills the long winter evenings. Thomas teaches you to play checkers with carved wooden pieces. You teach him knots and how to mend fishing nets for spring. Sarah watches, offering dry commentary and warm food. It's during one of these evenings, with Thomas already asleep in his small bed by the fire, that Sarah finally asks the question that has hung between you since your arrival. Who were you before you came here? The cabin is warm and dark except for firelight. Outside, wind howls through barren trees. The moment feels suspended, separated from the world of consequences. I was a sailor, you begin cautiously. And you hesitate, then decide on a version of truth. I was aboard a ship that did something terrible. I wasn't directly responsible, but I was there. I took my share of what came after. Sarah is silent, her face unreadable in the flickering light. I've never harmed women or children, you continue, needing her to understand at least this much. I'm not a monster, but I was part of something monstrous. The Indian treasure ship, she says softly. The one the trader mentioned. Shock freezes you in place. How did you... I notice things, the way you reacted when it was mentioned, how you seem haunted by something specific, not the general ghosts most men carry. She reaches for the poker, adjusting a log in the fire, and you have money hidden in your cabin, more than any ordinary sailor would possess. Fear rises, bitter in your throat. If Sarah has guessed so much, others might too. Perhaps it's time to move on again, to find somewhere even more remote. As if reading your thoughts, Sarah shakes her head. I haven't told anyone. I won't. As I said, this place is about second chances. Why? Why protect me? She considers the question, firelight playing across her features. Because Thomas looks at you like he once looked at his father. Because my father says you're the hardest worker he's seen in years. Because whatever you did before, you've been nothing but decent since arriving here. Relief washes through you, followed quickly by shame at being granted forgiveness you're not sure you deserve. The things that happened on that ship, they were worse than you can imagine. I don't need to imagine, Sarah replies simply. The past is past. What matters is what you do now. It's an absolution you never expected and aren't certain you've earned. But as winter deepens and your place in the settlement grows more established, you begin to consider the possibility that Sarah might be right, that perhaps a single terrible event, no matter how consequential, need not define the entirety of a life. Spring arrives with sudden warmth and explosive growth. The forest turns from brown to vibrant green almost overnight. The stream swells with snowmelt, fields turn muddy, and the settlement bursts with renewed activity. You join the men preparing new ground for planting. Your sailor's hands now calloused in new places from axe handles and hoes. Thomas follows you like a shadow whenever his mother allows, eager to learn everything from fishing to tracking game. "Do you think you'll stay?" he asks one afternoon as you show him how to set traps for rabbits. The question catches you off guard. In truth, you haven't thought much beyond surviving winter. The idea of permanence, of truly building a life here, is both appealing and terrifying. "I might," you answer carefully. "Would that be all right with you?" Thomas nods vigorously. "You could teach me more sailing knots, and maybe build a boat for the pond. And for one thing at a time," you laugh, ruffling his hair. "First, let's catch dinner." That evening, a rider arrives from the east with news and mail. Most of the settlement gathers around, eager for word from distant family or updates from the colonial capitals. You hang back as usual, but McTavish waves you forward. "Letter came for John Smith," he announces, using the false name you gave upon arrival. Confused and instantly wary, you accept the folded paper. No one should know to reach you here. No one should know the alias you've been using. You wait until you're alone in your cabin before examining the letter. The handwriting on the outside is unfamiliar. The paper good quality but travel-worn. Breaking the simple wax seal, you unfold it with fingers that aren't quite steady. The message inside is brief, unsigned, but you recognize the hand immediately. "The hunter has become the hunted. Ever seeks safety across the sea. Perhaps you should consider the same. Nassau is no longer safe. The tide rises for all who sailed the Fancy. Samuel. It can only be Samuel. But how did he find you? How did he know what name you were using? More importantly, what does his warning mean? The hunter has become the hunted. Is every being pursued by someone specific? And the warning about Nassau suggests the authorities are closing in on former crew members who remained there. Sleep eludes you that night as you weigh your options. Your life here is taking root, offering something you never expected to find again after the Ganges Sawai. Community, purpose, perhaps even redemption of a sort. To leave would mean starting over yet again, returning to a life of looking over your shoulder. But to stay might bring danger to these people, to Sarah, to Thomas, to McTavish, and the others who have accepted you without question. Dawn finds you still undecided, sitting on your cabin's small porch as the valley awakens around you. Birds call from the forest edge, smoke rises from early morning fires, and the eastern sky turns from grey to pink to gold. Sarah emerges from her cabin, pausing when she sees you. Something in your posture must betray your troubled thoughts, for she changes direction and approaches. "Bad news?" she asks, nodding toward the letter visible in your hand. "A warning," you reply, "from an old friend. Trouble may be coming my way." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that follows a man no matter how far he runs." Sarah sits beside you on the rough-hewn bench, her shoulder almost touching yours. "Is this about the treasure ship again?" You nod. "People are still hunting those involved. Getting closer, apparently. Then we should prepare." The simple "we" catches you off guard. "Sarah, this isn't your problem. It might be safer if I move on." "Safer for whom?" she challenges. "For you, alone in unfamiliar territory? For Thomas, who would lose another father figure? For this settlement which needs every strong back it can get? I'm not his father," you say softly. "No, but you could be something to him, to us." Her hand finds yours, warm and calloused from work. Running solved nothing the first time. Why would it now? It's a question without an easy answer. You sit in silence as the sun climbs higher, bringing the valley fully into day. "Let me think on it," you finally say. "This isn't a decision to make hastily." Sarah nods, squeezing your hand once before rising. "Whatever you decide, know that you have a place here, if you want it." She returns to her cabin, leaving you with more to consider than just the warning in Samuel's letter. Days pass, and you find yourself watching the Eastern Trail whenever you're working in the fields. Every approaching rider brings a spike of anxiety, every unfamiliar face a moment of assessment, but no threat materializes, and gradually the immediacy of Samuel's warning fades beneath the pressing needs of spring planting and cabin repairs. One evening, as several men gather to repair a damaged fence, the conversation turns to news from the east. A trader had passed through a nearby settlement, bringing newspapers and gossip from Philadelphia. They're saying England and Spain might go to war again. A settler named Jenkins reports. Over territory in the New World. Won't affect us out here, another man replies. Let the kings fight their own battles. Might affect trade, though, McTavish points out. Prices for everything from the coast would go up. There was other news too, Jenkins continues, about that pirate ship, the one that took the Indian treasure. They caught some of the crew in London, executed them all. Your hands freeze mid-task, heart suddenly pounding. The captain too? Someone asks. Jenkins shakes his head. No, he's still missing, but they say he lost all his treasure to crooked merchants, died in poverty somewhere in England. Serves him right, McTavish grunts. Pirates bring nothing but trouble. You remain silent, focusing intently on the fence post you're setting. Every, reduced to rumours and cautionary tales. Is he truly dead? Or is this just another layer of the legend, allowing the real man to disappear more completely? Later that night, alone in your cabin, you retrieve your own treasure from its hiding place beneath the floorboards. The leather pouch holds substantially less than your original share. You've spent carefully but consistently since leaving the fancy. Still, there's enough to live comfortably for years, or to travel far if necessary. Samuel's letter lies beside the pouch, its warning no less troubling for being days old. What did he mean about every seeking safety across the sea? Was he heading back to England, as the rumours suggested, or somewhere else entirely? A knock at your door startles you from these thoughts. Hastily concealing the treasure and letter, you open the door to find Sarah standing in the moonlight. "May I come in?" she asks. You step aside, suddenly conscious of your cabin's sparse furnishings and bachelor simplicity. Sarah enters, looking around with open curiosity. "You live like a man prepared to leave at any moment," she observes. "No decorations, few comforts, everything essential are old habits," you reply, uncomfortable with her accuracy. She turns to face you directly. "Have you made your decision about staying or going?" "Not yet." "What's holding you back?" It's a fair question, one you've been asking yourself. Fear, I suppose. Fear of bringing danger here. Fear of starting something I can't finish. Sarah steps closer. "We all fear something. I feared starving after my husband died. I feared raising Thomas alone. I feared the wilderness would claim us both." Her eyes hold yours steadily. "But fear makes for poor decisions. What would you have me do?" "Choose," she says simply, "not based on fear, but on what you truly want. If it's to leave, then go with my blessing. If it's to stay..." She leaves the sentence unfinished, the possibility hanging between you. You think of Thomas, of McTavish and the other settlers who've accepted you. You think of the cabin that's becoming a home, the land you're helping to cultivate. And you think of Sarah herself, strong and direct, offering a future you'd never imagined possible. "If I stay," you say carefully, "there's something you should know, the full truth of what happened on that ship." Sarah shakes her head. "I don't need to know what you did. I know who you are now. But if trouble comes, then we'll face it together," she interrupts. "That's what community means." She reaches out, her hand finding yours in the dim cabin. Outside, an owl calls into the night, its voice carrying across the valley that's become your sanctuary. A choice lies before you, to keep running from every shadow or to stand and claim a life beyond it. And for the first time since the Ganges Sawai, the choice seems clear. Summer unfolds across the valley in waves of green. Fields that were bare earth in spring now burst with corn and wheat. Vegetables climb makeshift trellises behind cabins. The berry bushes along the forest edge offer sweet rewards for careful fingers. The settlement hums with the steady rhythms of frontier life, a world away from the chaos of the high seas. Your cabin has changed in subtle ways. A proper bed replaces the simple pallet you slept on through winter. Shelves line one wall, holding books traded from passing merchants and small carvings you've begun to fashion in evening hours. A chair sits beside the hearth, angled toward the door, as if expecting visitors. Thomas comes most evenings after chores, sometimes to help with projects, sometimes simply to talk. The boy's curiosity about the wider world seems boundless, and you find yourself sharing carefully edited tales of distant ports and strange customs. Never piracy, never violence, but there are enough true wonders to keep him spellbound. "Tell me about the whales again," he requests one evening as you show him how to carve a simple wooden whistle. You smile, guiding his hands with the knife. What part? Their size? Their songs? The part where they jump out of the water like they're trying to fly? Breaching, you correct gently. No one knows exactly why they do it. Maybe to see what's above the surface, maybe for the joy of it. I saw one once, off the coast of Africa, that leapt completely clear of the water, a beast bigger than this cabin, suspended for a moment, like it had broken free of the sea's hold. Then it crashed back down with a splash you could feel in your chest from 100 yards away. Thomas's eyes shine in the lantern light. "I'm going to see one someday." Perhaps you will. You've stopped discouraging his seafaring dreams. Life has too many obstacles without adding the weight of others' fears. A shadow crosses the open doorway. Sarah, returning from the communal cooking fire with a pot of stew. The evening air carries the scent of rabbit, wild onions and herbs from her small garden. "Filling his head with sailors' tales again?" she asks, but her tone holds no censure. "Whale tales this time," you reply, helping her set out wooden bowls and spoons. The boy's determined to see one. Well, he comes by the wanderlust honestly. Sarah serves the stew, the domestic routine now comfortable between you. His father was the same, could never stay in one place too long. Until he met you, you observe. A small smile touches her lips. Until then, yes. The three of you eat together, as has become custom several nights each week. The conversation flows easily, from settlement gossip to plans for the coming harvest, to Thomas's latest discoveries in the woods. It's a simple meal, a simple evening, but the contentment it brings still surprises you. A man who once helped plunder the greatest treasure ship in history, now finding peace in rabbit stew and a child's laughter. After Thomas is sent to bed, you and Sarah sit outside on the bench beside her cabin door, watching fireflies rise from the meadow grass as darkness settles over the valley. "McTavish is planning a harvest celebration," Sarah says, breaking a comfortable silence. "Once the wheat is in. Dancing, music. Some of the men are making a corn whiskey. Sounds festive." "It is." She glances at you sideways. "He asked if you might play the fiddle that trader left behind. Said you were seen trying it out when you thought no one was watching. Heat rises in your face. I played a bit, on ships, during long voyages. Will you? Play for the celebration, I mean." You consider it. Being the center of attention, even briefly, goes against years of cultivated anonymity. But the danger feels distant now. The warnings in Samuel's letter faded like old ink. I'd need to practice, you say finally. It's been years. Sarah's smile is worth the concession. I'll tell him yes then. The next morning brings unexpected excitement to the settlement. A rider arrives from the east, dust-covered and trail-weary, with a bundle of letters and a saddlebag of small luxuries for those who can afford them. Coffee beans, sugar, a few precious sheets of paper, iron nails. No letters come for you this time, which brings both relief and a strange disappointment. Had you expected Samuel to write again, or was some part of you hoping for word of every, confirmation of his fate, an end to the story that still haunts your quieter moments? The rider, a garrulous man named Fletcher, stays for midday meal, sharing news between enthusiastic bites of fresh bread and cheese. Trade's booming in Philadelphia, he announces to the gathered settlers. Ships coming in from everywhere. England, France, the West Indies. Prices for furs are up. Good time to be a trapper. Any word of trouble? McTavish asks. Wars, conflicts with the natives? Fletcher shrugs. Nothing that reaches this far. There's talk of stricter governance from London, new taxes, regulations on frontier settlements, but out here, he gestures at the surrounding wilderness, who's to enforce it? You listen quietly, noting how distant these concerns feel now. The politics of empires, the machinations of trade companies, they belong to another life. After the meal, as Fletcher prepares to continue his journey to more remote settlements, you approach him privately. Have you heard any news of pirate trials in London or the colonies? Fletcher gives you a curious look, but answers readily enough. Not recently. That business has died down mostly. Navy's got the Caribbean well patrolled now. The East India Company's got armed merchantmen escorting their treasure fleets. He secures a bag to his saddle. Why the interest? Just curious. I was a merchant sailor before settling here. Lost shipmates to pirates. It's a plausible explanation, and Fletcher accepts it with a nod. Well, the golden age is over from what I hear. Pirates these days are desperate men, not the legends of 10 years ago. That fellow Every, the one who took the Indian ship, he was probably the last of the great ones. Have they confirmed his fate? You try to keep your tone casual. No one knows for certain. Some say he died poor in Devon. Others claim he's living like royalty in Madagascar. Fletcher mounts his horse, makes for good tavern tales either way. As he rides out, you consider his words. The uncertainty of Every's fate seems fitting somehow. The most successful pirate in history vanished like morning mist, leaving only whispers and legends. The preparations for harvest consume the settlement over the following weeks. Every able body is needed from dawn to dusk, cutting wheat, binding it into sheaves, threshing to separate grain from chaff. Your hands blister and callous anew, your back aches with unfamiliar labour, but there's satisfaction in work that feeds rather than plunders. In spare moments, you practice the fiddle McTavish loaned you. Your fingers remember more than you expected. Old sea shanties and dancing tunes coming back with surprising ease. Thomas watches your practice sessions with fascination, occasionally attempting to sing along to the livelier melodies. My father couldn't play any instruments, he tells you one evening as you rose in the bow. Not everyone has the knack for it, you reply. Mother says you have clever hands. He demonstrates by trying to tie a sailor's knot you taught him, his small fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar pattern. Like this, you set aside the fiddle to help him. Almost. See how this part crosses over? Like so. The boy concentrates, tongue caught between his teeth as he tries again. When he succeeds, his face lights up with pride. I did it. Well done. You ruffle his hair, a gesture that's become natural between you. Keep practicing, and you'll be teaching me knots before long. Thomas beams at the praise. When I go to sea, I'll know all the knots already. When you go to sea, you agree, no longer trying to dissuade him from dreams that may never materialize. The boy will make his own choices in time, as all must do. The harvest celebration arrives with the first hint of autumn chill. Tables are arranged in the open area between cabins, laden with the fruits of collective labor: roasted game, corn pudding, fresh bread, wild berries preserved in honey. Lanterns and torches cast dancing light across faces flushed with exertion and corn whiskey. You sit on a wooden crate at the edge of the gathering, fiddle in hand, watching as couples form for dancing. Sarah moves among them in a dress saved for special occasions, her hair down instead of in its practical braid. She catches your eye across the crowd and smiles. McTavish gives a signal, and you draw the bow across strings, beginning a lively reel that sets feet tapping and hands clapping. The music flows through you, connecting present to past. The same tunes played in ships' forecastles and dockside taverns, now bringing joy to this frontier settlement. The evening passes in a blur of music, laughter, and more corn whiskey than might be wise. You play until your fingers ache, then join the dancing when another settler produces a mouth harp to continue the music. Sarah's hand finds yours, pulling you into a circle dance that leaves everyone breathless and laughing. Later, as the celebration winds down and families drift back to their cabins, you find yourself walking with Sarah under a sky brilliant with stars, Thomas asleep on McTavish's shoulder ahead of you. "You play beautifully," she says, her arm linked through yours for balance on the uneven path. The whole settlement was impressed. "I'm out of practice," you demur, "but it felt good to play again." "You should do more of what feels good." Her voice holds a warmth that isn't entirely from the whiskey. "You've earned that, have you?" The question surfaces unbidden. Have you earned this peaceful life, this community, this woman's regard after what happened on the Ganges Sawai? After taking your share of blood money? Sarah seems to sense your thoughts darkening. "Stop," she says softly. "Whatever you're thinking, stop. Tonight is for celebration, not ghosts." You manage a smile. "You're right, as usual. Remember that," she replies with mock seriousness. "It will serve you well." At her cabin door, with Thomas already delivered to his bed, you hesitate. The moment feels weighted with possibility. Sarah solves your indecision by rising on tiptoes to press a kiss to your cheek. "Good night," she whispers, "and thank you for the music." She disappears inside, leaving you with the lingering warmth of her kiss and a lightness in your chest that has nothing to do with whiskey. Autumn arrives in earnest, painting the forest in fiery hues of red and gold. The settlement turns to winter preparations, smoking meat, storing grain, gathering firewood before snow makes the task more difficult. You throw yourself into these efforts, finding unexpected purpose in securing not just your own survival, but that of the community that has accepted you. One crisp morning, as you split logs behind your cabin, McTavish approaches with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Got a moment?" he asks, watching as you embed the axe in a stump. "Of course." McTavish studies you with weathered eyes. "Been meaning to ask about your intentions regarding my daughter." The directness doesn't surprise you. It's McTavish's way, but the topic catches you off guard. "Sarah is important to me. I can see that. Question is, what do you plan to do about it?" You wipe sweat from your forehead, buying time to order your thoughts. "If you're asking if my intentions are honourable, I know they are," McTavish interrupts. "You're not the type to trifle with a woman, but Sarah's been through enough loss. Thomas too. If you're not planning to stay for good, better to make that clear now." The moment of truth, delivered not by authorities hunting pirates, but by a concerned father looking out for his family. "I want to stay. you say finally. Build something here, with them, if Sarah's willing. McTavish nods, satisfaction evident in his expression. Good. That's good. He turns to leave, then pauses. One more thing. Whatever trouble you left behind, and don't bother denying there was trouble, is it likely to follow you here? The question strikes at your deepest fear. I don't think so, you answer honestly. It's been over a year with no sign of it. Fair enough. McTavish claps you on the shoulder. Life's too short to worry about what might never happen. Ask her proper before winter sets in. He walks away, leaving you with the realization that your past, while not forgotten, has ceased to define you in the eyes of those who matter most. That evening, you invite Sarah to walk with you to the pond at the edge of the settlement. Thomas is engrossed in a checkers game with McTavish, who gives you a knowing nod as you leave. The pond reflects the sunset in ripples of orange and gold. A light breeze stirs the cattails along its edge. You've rehearsed words in your mind all day, but now, facing the moment, they scatter like leaves in wind. I haven't been entirely honest with you, you begin, immediately regretting the opening. Sarah looks at you with patient eyes. About? Not my past, you know enough of that. About my feelings. You take her hand, rough from work, but warm in yours. I never expected to find this place, to find you and Thomas, to want a life so different from what I'd known. And do you, she asks softly, want this life? More than I've wanted anything. The truth of it surprises you even as you say it. I want to build something lasting here, something good. Sarah's smile is gentle. We've already started, haven't we? The simplicity of her acceptance loosens something tight inside your chest. No dramatic declarations needed, no grand gestures, just the quiet acknowledgement of what has been growing between you since winter. You kiss her then, beneath the fading light of sunset. It's not your first kiss. There have been women in ports across the world, but it's different. A beginning rather than an ending. A promise rather than a momentary escape. When you part, Sarah's eyes hold yours steadily. No more looking over your shoulder, she says. The past is past. You nod, wanting to believe it's truly that simple. The first snow falls in early November, transforming the valley into a landscape of white silence. The settlement contracts to essential movement, between cabins to the communal storehouse to check on livestock in their winter shelters. Families gather around hearths, mending tools, telling stories, surviving together until spring. Your cabin feels different now. Sarah and Thomas spend most evenings there, bringing warmth that has nothing to do with the fire. The three of you develop routines, Thomas practicing his letters while you carve or repair equipment, Sarah mending clothing or preparing food, the domestic tranquility occasionally broken by the boys' questions or a shared joke. Will you teach me to fish when the ice melts? Thomas asks one evening, looking up from the slate where he's been practicing his name. Of course, you promise. We'll make proper lines and hooks, maybe even build a small boat for the pond. A real boat? That floats? It would be a poor boat if it didn't, you tease, enjoying his excitement. Sarah watches from her chair by the fire, needle pausing in its rhythm through cloth. You'll make him impossible to manage with such promises. Every boy should know how to build a boat, you counter, even if he never goes to sea. Especially if he never goes to sea, she corrects, but her smile takes any sting from the words. Later, after Thomas has fallen asleep on the bearskin rug before the fire, Sarah joins you at the small table where you've been repairing a leather harness. I've been thinking about spring, she says, voice low to avoid waking her son. What about it? We should plant apple trees, west of the cabin where the ground rises slightly. Good drainage there. The casual future planning, trees that won't bear fruit for years, warms you more than the hearth. Apple trees sound perfect. Sarah reaches across the table, her fingers tracing the scar on your forearm, a reminder of the Ganji Sawai battle you've never explained and she's never asked about. I want to be married before planting season if you're amenable. The directness startles a laugh from you. Shouldn't I be the one asking? You were taking too long, she replies with mock seriousness. Winter's half gone already. You capture her hand, bringing it to your lips. Yes, before planting season. Her smile in the firelight is worth every hardship that led you here. Winter deepens, bringing storms that howl around cabin walls and days so cold that breath freezes in beards. The settlement endures as it always has, through shared resources and determination. You learn new skills from necessity, how to snowshoe through drifts, to check trap lines, how to predict weather from the way smoke rises from chimneys, how to keep a family's spirits up during the darkest days of the year. News from the outside world arrives rarely, carried by the occasional brave or foolhardy traveller seeking shelter from the elements. One such visitor, a fur trader pushing west ahead of spring, brings newspapers from Philadelphia that are devoured by the knowledge-hungry settlement. King George is ill, McTavish announces at a communal dinner in the largest cabin. Parliament is in disarray. This news means little to most settlers whose daily concerns are more immediate than distant politics, but other tidings spark greater interest. The East India Company has expanded its control in Bengal, McTavish continues, reading by lantern light. The Mughal Empire's power continues to wane. You pause, spoon halfway to your mouth. The Mughal Empire, Aurangzeb, the Ganji Sawai, names and events that once dominated your existence, now reduced to a passing mention in year-old news. Does it say anything about piracy, you ask, unable to help yourself? McTavish scans the paper. Only that naval patrols have virtually eliminated the pirate threat to shipping in the Caribbean and Indian Ocean. He looks up. Interesting times at sea, it seems. You nod non-committally, aware of Sarah's concerned glance from across the table. Later, as you walk back to your cabin through knee-deep snow, she broaches the subject. You still think about it. The sea. Or sometimes, you admit. Not in the way you might fear, not longing to return, just wondering about people I knew, how things changed. Sarah takes your arm, as much for stability on the icy path as for closeness. It's natural to wonder, as long as wondering doesn't become regret. No regrets, you assure her, meaning it. Everything that happened led me here, to you and Thomas. I wouldn't change that. Her gloved hand tightens on your arm. Nor would I. The conversation turns to wedding plans, a spring ceremony when the worst of winter has passed, allowing the entire settlement to attend. Simple, practical, like everything in frontier life, but no less meaningful for its lack of ostentation. That night, as wind rattles the cabin shutters and Sarah sleeps beside you, your mind drifts to Henry Every. Where is he now? Did he truly die penniless in England, cheated of his fortune? Or did he, like you, find some quiet corner to disappear into, to build a life beyond piracy? You'll never know, you realize. Every story, at least the part that intersected with yours, is finished. What remains is your own story, still unfolding in ways you never imagined when you stood on the deck of the Fancy, watching the Ganji Sawai's mainmast splinter beneath cannon fire. The treasure you salvaged from that day was not the gold now hidden beneath your cabin floor, or insurance against hard times you increasingly doubt will ever come. The real treasure was a chance to begin again, to become someone worthy of Sarah's love and Thomas's admiration. As sleep finally claims you, you wonder if Every, wherever he is, found something similar. For his sake, you hope so. Even the most successful pirate in history deserved a second chance. Morning brings heavy snow and the quiet certainty that your life as a pirate is truly over. In its place stands something far more valuable, a future built on more than stolen gold, a legacy beyond the shadow of Henry Every. Spring arrives in the valley with the gentle persistence of a tide. Snow retreats first from south-facing slopes, revealing patches of muddy earth that gradually turn green with new growth. The stream swells with meltwater, ice breaking into crystalline shards that tumble downstream in the current. Birds return. First the hardy ravens and crows that never truly left, then red-winged blackbirds trilling from cattails, and finally the melodic warblers announcing the season's full arrival. The settlement stirs from winter's enforced stillness like a bear from hibernation. Cabins that have been sealed tight against the cold now stand with doors propped open to welcome fresh air. Children who've been confined indoors for months run wildly through muddy paths, their laughter a counterpoint to the steady drip of melting icicles. Your own cabin undergoes a transformation. Sarah and Thomas move their belongings in gradually. A quilt here, cooking implements there, small treasures and necessities finding new homes on shelves you've built specifically for them. The space that once felt empty now brims with the evidence of shared lives. Where should this go? Thomas asks, holding up a carved wooden horse his grandfather made him. Wherever you think best, you reply, watching as the boy considers the question with serious deliberation before placing the horse on a shelf near his sleeping pallet. There, he says with satisfaction, so I can see it when I wake up. These small decisions, the arrangement of a home, the placement of cherished objects, carry a weight you never anticipated. They anchor you to this place, to these people, in ways more binding than any formal ceremony. The wedding itself is set for the first full moon of spring, when the ground has dried enough for comfortable gathering and before the demanding work of planting consumes every waking hour. The settlement treats it as a community celebration, each family contributing what they can. Food, music, decorations crafted during winter's long evenings. Sarah sews a new dress from fabric she's been saving, a soft blue that makes her eyes seem deeper, more luminous. You trade a portion of your hidden treasure for a silver ring brought by a passing merchant, carefully selected for its simple elegance rather than ostentatious display. The day arrives clear and mild, with just enough breeze to carry the scent of early wildflowers across the valley. The ceremony takes place beside the pond, now free of ice and reflecting the blue sky and greening trees. McTavish presides, his usual gruffness softened by evident emotion as he speaks the traditional words that bind his daughter to you. Do you take this woman? His voice carries across the gathered settlement. I do, you answer, surprising yourself with the steadiness of your voice despite the tightness in your chest. Sarah's hand is warm in yours as you slide the silver ring onto her finger. Her "I do" is quiet but firm, her eyes never leaving yours as she speaks the binding words. Then it's done, simple, unadorned, but no less profound for its lack of ceremony. Cheers rise from the gathered community, genuine joy for two of their own finding happiness in this remote wilderness. The celebration continues well into evening. Food is plentiful if simple, music spirited if not professionally rendered. Children race between adults, dogs chase scraps, and the first stars appear in the deepening blue sky as lanterns are lit around the clearing. You dance with your new wife beneath those stars, her body warm against yours, her smile visible even in the gathering darkness. Happy? You murmur as you turn slowly to a fiddle's mournful melody. Completely, she answers, resting her head against your shoulder. And you? Any regrets? Only that I didn't find you sooner, she laughs softly. You weren't ready sooner, neither was I. The truth of this settles comfortably between you. The paths that led you both here, his across pirate-infested seas, hers through loss and struggle, were necessary journeys, however difficult. Thomas joins you later, his small hand slipping into yours as the celebration winds down. Are you my father now? He asks, without preamble. The directness of children never fails to catch you off guard. If you'd like me to be, you answer carefully. I'd be honoured. The boy considers this with characteristic seriousness. I think my first father wouldn't mind. He'd want mother to be happy. I think you're right, you agree, throat suddenly tight with unexpected emotion. Good. Thomas nods decisively. Then it's settled. And just like that, with a child's simple acceptance, another piece of your new identity locks into place. The days following the wedding blend into the rhythms of spring planting. Fields are prepared, seeds sown, the future literally planted in rows of corn and wheat and vegetables. You work alongside the other men of the settlement, your body now accustomed to these inland labours, finding satisfaction in soil rather than salt water. At night, you return to a home transformed by Sarah's presence. The smell of cooking, the sound of Thomas practicing his letters, the simple comfort of belonging that once seemed impossibly distant. I've been thinking about the apple trees, Sarah says one evening, as you sit together on the bench, outside your cabin, watching the sunset paint the valley in gold. We should plant them south of the cabin, not west. Better sun. Whatever you think best, you agree, content to follow her expertise in matters of growing things, and perhaps some plums as well, for variety. You smile at the long-term planning. Plums sound perfect. Her hand finds yours, fingers intertwining with easy familiarity. Do you ever miss it? The sea? The question doesn't catch you entirely by surprise. You've seen her watching when your gaze drifts toward the horizon, perhaps wondering what memories draw your attention from the present. Not the sea itself, you answer truthfully, but sometimes the freedom of it, the endless possibility of what might lie beyond the next wave. Sarah nods, understanding. This life has different horizons, smaller perhaps, but no less meaningful. More meaningful, you correct gently. What we build here, what we grow, it's real in a way nothing at sea ever was. She leans against you, a comfortable weight against your side. Even so, Thomas should hear your stories, all of them, when he's older. Where you've been, what you've seen, it's part of who you are. Even the darker parts, you ask, thinking of the Ganji Sawai, of what might happen if those stories ever reached the wrong ears. In time, when he's old enough to understand that good men sometimes make terrible choices, that redemption is possible. The conversation shifts to more immediate concerns, a leak in the roof that needs mending, plans for expanding the vegetable garden, whether Thomas's cough is just spring pollen or something requiring Sarah's herbal remedies. This is your life now, domestic concerns, seasonal planning, the welfare of a small family in a remote settlement, so different from the chaos and violence of your years at sea that they might belong to different men entirely. Summer unfolds with predictable glory. The valley transforms into a lush paradise of green growth and abundant wildlife. Days stretch long, the sun warming the earth and coaxing crops from the soil. The settlement buzzes with activity, fishing in the stream and pond, hunting in the surrounding forests, tending the fields that will sustain everyone through the coming winter. Thomas follows you everywhere, eager to learn everything from fishing to tracking game to repairing tools. His quick mind absorbs knowledge like dry earth takes rain, and his natural dexterity makes him adept at tasks requiring careful hands. You're a good teacher, Sarah observes one evening as Thomas proudly displays a fishhook he's fashioned from wire under your guidance. He's a good student, you counter, quick to learn, slow to frustration. Thomas beams at the praise, already planning tomorrow's fishing expedition to try his new creation. The promised boat takes shape gradually, a small, flat-bottomed craft, suitable for the settlement's pond and gentle stream. You work on it during evenings, Thomas helping where he can, learning the basics of carpentry alongside the principles of watercraft. Will it go fast? He asks repeatedly. Fast enough for fishing, you assure him, though nothing like the ships I've sailed. Like the Fancy? He asks innocently. Your hands freeze on the plank you're shaping. You've never mentioned that name to him, never spoken of your time aboard Every's pirate vessel. Where did you hear that name? You ask carefully. Thomas shrugs. I heard Grandfather talking to Mr. Jenkins. He said you might have sailed on a ship called the Fancy with a famous pirate, but he said it didn't matter because you're a good man now. Relief mingles with concern. If McTavish and others suspect your past, how long before someone with less loyalty to the settlement makes the connection? How long before word spreads to those still hunting Every's crew? You set down your tools, turning to face the boy directly. Thomas, that's not a name you should repeat. Not to anyone. Do you understand? His eyes widen at your serious tone. Why? Was it a bad ship? How to explain piracy to a child? How to convey the complexities of choices made in desperation, of violence justified by circumstance, of treasure stained with blood? It was complicated, you say finally. I'll tell you about it someday when you're older, but for now, it's best not to speak of it. Thomas nods solemnly, sensing the weight behind your words. I promise. You ruffle his hair, grateful for his simple trust. Good man, now let's finish this gunnel before your mother calls us for supper. Later, after Thomas is asleep, you speak with Sarah about what you've learned. McTavish knows, you say simply, or at least suspects. She doesn't seem surprised. He's known for some time, I think. It doesn't change how he feels about you. And if others make the connection, if word spreads. Sarah's expression remains calm. This is the frontier. Everyone here has something in their past they'd prefer to leave behind. That's why they came this far from civilization. This is different. There were prices on the heads of Every's crew. Ancient history, she dismisses. It's been years. The world has moved on. New pirates, new crimes, new hunts. You want to believe her, to trust that time and distance have rendered you irrelevant to those who once hunted Every's men, but caution runs deep after years of vigilance. Just the same, I think we should be prepared if trouble comes. Sarah studies your face in the firelight. What do you suggest? Nothing dramatic, just awareness. Perhaps arrangements with friends in case we need to leave quickly. You truly think it might come to that? You consider the question honestly. No, probably not, but I've survived this long by preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. She nods, accepting this piece of your sailor's pragmatism. Fair enough, but don't let shadows from the past darken what we're building here. Never, you promise, drawing her close. This life, You and Thomas, it's everything to me." The boat is finished as summer reaches its peak. You and Thomas carry it ceremoniously to the pond's edge, where a small crowd of settlers gathers to witness its maiden voyage. The craft is simple but sound, wide-bottomed for stability, with a pointed prow and 2 sets of oarlocks. "What will you name her?" McTavish asks as the boat is positioned at the water's edge. You look to Thomas, who has been contemplating this important decision for days. "It's your boat as much as mine," you tell him. "You should choose." The boy straightens proudly. "I want to call her Sarah's Dream," he announces, "because Mother always dreamed of having a boat on the pond." The simple thoughtfulness brings unexpected moisture to your eyes. "A perfect name," you agree, carving the letters carefully into the stern as the community watches approvingly. The first voyage is a ceremonial circuit of the pond, Thomas sitting proudly in the bow while you row. His face glows with accomplishment and adventure, small hands gripping the gunwales as the boat cuts smoothly through still water. "It's like flying," he breathes, trailing fingers in the pond's cool surface. "Wait until you feel a proper ship running before the wind," you reply without thinking. "That's true flying. Will you take me someday on a real ship?" The question gives you pause. Will you ever return to the sea? Could you, safely, or is that part of your life truly over? "Perhaps," you answer non-committally, "when you're older. For now, this vessel is challenge enough." The boat becomes Thomas's pride and joy, a source of independence as he learns to row it himself, fishing from its stable platform or simply exploring the pond's shoreline. You watch his growing confidence with mixed emotions, pride in his accomplishments, anxiety about his safety, and deeper, more complex feelings about his fascination with water and vessels. Is this how it begins? This calling to the sea that has claimed generations of men? Will Thomas someday leave this peaceful valley for the uncertain horizons that once called to you? "You're brooding again," Sarah observes one afternoon as you watch Thomas row determinedly across the pond. "He's fine. The water's barely deep enough to wet his knees if he fell in." "It's not that," you admit. "I'm wondering if I've set him on a path by telling him stories of the sea. If someday he'll leave this place because I put the longing for horizons in his head." Sarah's laugh is gentle. The boy has his own destiny. If he's drawn to the sea, it's because that calling was already in him. She touches your arm. Just as the calling for home and family was always in you, waiting for the right moment to be heard. Her wisdom, as usual, settles your concerns. Thomas will make his own choices when the time comes. Your role is not to steer his course, but to ensure he has the skills and judgment to navigate whatever waters he chooses. Autumn brings the harvest, the settlement working together to gather and store the fruits of their collective labour. The rhythms of this season now feel familiar. The urgency of beating early frosts, the satisfaction of full storehouses, the communal meals celebrating abundance before winter's austerity. Your family's cabin has expanded over the summer, a small addition built with the help of neighbours, providing a separate sleeping area for Thomas and storage space for the winter's necessities. The improvements represent permanence, a commitment to this place and these people that would have been unimaginable in your days aboard the Fancy. One crisp October morning, as frost silvers the meadow grass and your breath forms clouds in the chill air, a rider appears on the eastern trail. The settlement receives visitors more frequently now as the frontier gradually pushes westward, but something about this rider's purposeful approach sets your instincts on alert. You're splitting wood behind the cabin when Thomas runs around the corner, cheeks flushed with excitement. Father A-Man is looking for you. The simple title still warms you, even as anxiety spikes at his words. What sort of man? A sailor, I think. He talks like you used to, with strange words. He asked for John Smith, and grandfather sent me to fetch you. You set down the axe, mind racing through possibilities. A former crewmate from the Fancy? An agent of the authorities still hunting Every's men after all these years? Or something more benign? A messenger from Samuel, perhaps? Tell your grandfather I'll be there directly, you instruct Thomas, and stay close to your mother until I return. The boy nods, sensing the seriousness beneath your calm tone, and darts away to deliver the message. Inside the cabin, you retrieve the pistol kept loaded but hidden high on a shelf. It's a precaution you've maintained despite years of peace, despite Sarah's gentle teasing about your sailor's paranoia. Better to be armed unnecessarily than vulnerable when needed. The pistol tucked into your belt beneath your jacket, you walk with deliberate, unhurried steps toward the settlement centre, where a small crowd has gathered around the visitor. McTavish spots you approaching and raises a hand in greeting, his expression giving away nothing of the situation's nature. The stranger turns, and relief floods through you. It's not an unfamiliar face from the Fancy's crew, not an agent of the Admiralty or East India Company. It's a weathered man of perhaps 50, with the unmistakable stance of someone accustomed to moving decks. John Smith, he calls, using the false name you've lived under these past years. I, you acknowledge, closing the distance between you. And you are? Name's Garrett. Captain Michael Garrett of the merchant vessel Northern Star. He extends a hand which you shake cautiously. I bring a message from a mutual acquaintance, fellow who calls himself Samuel. The name sends a jolt through you. Samuel, your friend from the Fancy, the man who warned you once before of danger. Is he well? Garrett nods. Well enough. Settled in Ireland, as he'd planned, has a small farm near Kinsale, asked me to find you if I was ever trading in these parts. And his message? The captain glances at the curious onlookers. Perhaps somewhere more private. McTavish steps in smoothly. Use my cabin. No one will disturb you. Inside McTavish's cabin, with the door closed against curious ears, Captain Garrett produces a sealed letter from his coat. Samuel asked me to tell you he's at peace, that the shadows have passed. He thought you'd want to know. You break the wax seal, a simple unmarked blob rather than any identifiable signet, and unfold the single sheet of paper within. The handwriting is unmistakably Samuel's, though perhaps shakier than you remember. Friend, the hunter is gone. Found dead in London 2 winters past. His quarry too, they say, though some claim otherwise. Either way, the chase is ended. Those who sailed with us are either hanged, vanished, or, like us, transformed by time and distance into different men entirely. I have a wife now. Children. Land that yields to my efforts. Peace I never thought possible. I hope you found the same. No need to reply. This letter burns after reading. Remember me when the wind blows from the east. S. The hunter gone. The East India Company agent who once captured you, who sought Every above all others, now dead, and Every himself reportedly dead as well, though Samuel's wording suggests doubt about this claim. You read the letter twice more, committing its contents to memory, then hold it to a candle flame as instructed. The paper catches quickly, curling into ash that you crush between your fingers. Thank you for bringing this, you tell Garrett. It means more than you know. The captain shrugs. Didn't know what it contained. Don't want to know. Samuel paid well for the delivery, and I honour my contracts. Will you return to him? To Ireland? Not directly, but our routes take us to Cork occasionally. I could carry a reply in a few months' time. You shake your head. No reply needed, but if you see him, tell him the same is true here. Peace found, family made. Garrett nods, understanding the simplicity of the message. I'll tell him. The captain stays only long enough to trade for supplies and rest his horse before continuing his journey westward, where other settlements await with other business arrangements. You watch him ride away with a curious lightness in your chest. Good news? Sarah asks, as you return to your cabin, where she waits with obvious concern. The best, you reply, drawing her into an embrace. The past is truly past. We're free. You explain Samuel's message as Thomas listens wide-eyed to this connection to your mysterious former life. The boy has questions, of course, but accepts your promise that someday, when he's older, you'll tell him the full story of the Fancy and Captain Henry Every. That night, as autumn wind rustles through trees nearly bare of leaves, you lie awake beside sleeping Sarah, contemplating this new certainty. The hunter gone. The chase ended, the past finally, truly behind you. Tomorrow you'll retrieve the leather pouch from beneath the floorboards, the last tangible connection to your pirate days, not to hide it elsewhere, but to put its contents to better use. Schools in Philadelphia, tools and seeds for neighbouring settlements, perhaps passage for Thomas to see the ocean someday, under circumstances far different from those you experienced. Gold taken in violence, transformed into opportunity and growth. Blood money laundered through time and good intentions into something that might finally do more good than harm. Outside, an owl calls into the darkness. Inside, the slow breathing of your sleeping family fills the cabin with peaceful rhythm. Between these sounds, wild nature and human comfort, you find your place at last. No longer a pirate, no longer a fugitive, simply a man with a family, a community, a future unburdened by the shadow of Henry Every. Sleep comes easily now, deep and dreamless, secure in the knowledge that you found a treasure far more valuable than anything aboard the Ganges Sawai, a second chance fully and finally claimed. Years pass in the valley with the gentle rhythm of seasons. Winter snow melts into spring renewal, summer abundance fades to autumn harvest, and winter returns to complete the cycle. The settlement grows slowly, new cabins appearing as children marry or fresh settlers arrive, seeking the same peace you found. Your own cabin expands with the passing time, a larger bedroom added when Sarah announces she's carrying a child, a workshop built alongside where you craft furniture and boats that gain reputation beyond the settlement. The apple trees south of the cabin now stand taller than Thomas, their branches offering first blossoms, then small fruit growing sweeter with each harvest. Thomas himself grows like a well-watered sapling, reaching his 12th year with the gangly promise of the man he'll become. His childhood fascination with boats and distant places remains, tempered now with practical knowledge of farming, hunting, and the skills needed for frontier survival. "Do you think I'll ever see the ocean?" he asks one summer evening as you sit together on the porch, watching fireflies rise from the meadow grass. "I expect you will, if you still want to when you're older," you reply, noting how his voice has begun to deepen, childhood gradually giving way to adolescence. "Tell me again about the whales," he requests, a familiar refrain that connects present to past. You smile, settling more comfortably in your chair. The biggest ones are like mountains moving through the water, so large that when they breach, leap from the sea, it seems impossible that anything so massive could defy gravity even for a moment. Their tails alone are wider than our boat on the pond, and when they crash back down, the splash can drench a ship's deck from 50 yards away. Thomas listens with the same wonder he's always shown for your stories, though now he asks more sophisticated questions. How do they find each other in the ocean? It's so vast. They sing, you tell him, songs that carry for miles through the water. Sailors can sometimes hear them through the hull, haunting melodies unlike anything on land. I'd like to hear that someday. Perhaps you will. The conversation drifts, as summer evening conversations do, until Sarah calls Thomas in to help with a final chore before bed. You remain on the porch, watching darkness settle over the valley, marveling at the peace you found here. Your second child, a daughter named Elizabeth, sleeps inside, a bright-eyed 3-year-old with Sarah's determination and your restlessness. She's brought new energy to your household, her arrival both unexpected and joyful when Sarah discovered her pregnancy in your 5th year in the valley. Parenthood. The second time feels different, less uncertain, more appreciative of the swift passage of childhood. You find yourself treasuring small moments more consciously. Elizabeth's first steps across the cabin floor, her delighted laughter at discovering frogs by the pond, her solemn concentration as you teach her to string beads found in a trader's pack. McTavish, now grey-bearded and moving more slowly but no less sharp-minded, dotes on his granddaughter with an openness he never quite managed with Thomas. She reminds me of Sarah at that age, he tells you often, stubborn as the day is long but sweet with it. Life has settled into patterns both comfortable and satisfying. The hidden treasure beneath your floorboards has diminished over the years, portions sent east with trusted traders to fund schools, purchase medicine for neighbouring settlements, and establish a small fund for Thomas's education should he choose to pursue it. The gold taken in violence has been transformed piece by piece into opportunity and growth. Not enough to erase the blood spilled on the Ganges Sawai, perhaps, but a form of atonement that brings its own quiet peace. On Thomas's 13th birthday, a significant milestone in frontier life, you take him hunting in the hills beyond the settlement. After a successful morning tracking deer, you rest beside a small stream, sharing the food Sarah packed for your journey. I think it's time you heard the full story, you say without preamble, about my life before coming here, about the fancy. Thomas's eyes widen. He's heard fragments over the years, pieced together from overheard conversations and your occasional references, but never the complete tale. Are you sure? He asks, suddenly serious beyond his years. You're old enough now, and I'd rather you hear it from me than from garbled stories or rumours. So there, beside a mountain stream, far from any ocean, you tell him everything. The mutiny aboard the Charles II, the renaming to Fancy, the raids along the African coast, including the enslaving of villagers, the attack on the Ganges Sawai, and the treasure that made Henry Every the most successful pirate in history. You don't spare yourself in the telling, don't minimise your role or the horror of what happened aboard the captured Mughal ship. Thomas listens in silence, his young face solemn as he absorbs the reality of your former life. The treasure hidden beneath our cabin floor came from that raid, you conclude. Blood money that I've tried to use for better purposes over the years. Are you still wanted by the authorities? Thomas asks practical questions first, emotional ones later, much like his mother. I doubt it. It's been nearly 15 years. Most of the crew are dead or disappeared. Every himself is reportedly dead, though some dispute that. Do you think he is? Dead? You consider this question that has lingered at the edges of your thoughts for years. I don't know. Part of me hopes he found peace somewhere, as I have. Another part. What? Another part wonders if a man who orchestrated such violence, who allowed such suffering, deserves peace. Thomas is quiet for a long moment, processing this. But you were part of it too. Do you deserve peace? The directness of the question catches you off guard, though it shouldn't. Thomas has always cut to the heart of matters. I ask myself that sometimes, you admit. I wasn't directly responsible for the worst atrocities, but I was there. I took my share of the treasure. I didn't stop what happened. But you've tried to make amends, Thomas points out. You've used the treasure to help people. I've tried. Whether it's enough, you shrug. That's not for me to judge. I think it is, Thomas says with surprising conviction. You judge yourself harder than anyone else would. The observation, so mature from one so young, brings a smile despite the heavy subject. When did you get so wise? Mother says I was born with an old soul. He grins briefly before turning serious again. Thank you for telling me, for trusting me with the truth. You deserve to know, but this story stays between us for now. Elizabeth is too young, and there's no need for others beyond the settlement to hear it. Thomas nods, accepting the responsibility of shared secrets. I understand. You return to the settlement by evening, the successful hunt providing cover for the deeper purpose of your expedition. Sarah reads your expression as you enter the cabin, understanding without words that Thomas now knows the full story. Later, after the children are asleep, she joins you by the fire. How did he take it? Better than I deserved, you admit. Asked good questions, didn't judge. He admires you too much to judge harshly. Perhaps that will change as he gets older, thinks more about what I've told him. Sarah shakes her head. He knows the man you are now. That matters more than who you were then. Her certainty comforts you, as it has so often through the years. Sarah's practical wisdom, her ability to see clearly what matters most, has been your anchor in this inland life. Autumn comes early that year, frost touching the valley before September's end. The settlement prepares for winter with practiced efficiency. Food stored, firewood stacked, cabins sealed against coming cold. The rhythm of these preparations has become second nature now, a comfortable cycle of survival against the seasons. One crisp morning, as leaves drift golden from the trees, a rider approaches from the east. Not unusual in itself, as traffic through the settlement has increased with each passing year. But this rider is familiar, his weathered face bringing immediate recognition. Captain Garrett, you greet him as he dismounts before the communal gathering area. Smith, he returns with a nod. Good to find you still here, and looking prosperous, I might add. It's been 5 years since Garrett delivered Samuel's letter announcing the end of the hunt for Every's crew. The captain looks older now, more lines etched into his face, but his posture remains straight, his eyes alert. What brings you back this way, you ask, offering water for his horse. Trade routes, and a message of sorts. He glances at the settlers gathering curiously around. Perhaps somewhere private. McTavish offers his cabin again, and once inside with the door closed, Garrett produces a folded newspaper from his saddlebag. Thought you might want to see this, he says, handing it over. From London, about 6 months ago. The paper is creased and stained from long travel, but the headline remains clearly legible. Final mystery of pirate, every solved, treasure found in Devon estate. Your heart quickens as you scan the article. According to the account, renovations to an old manor house in Devon revealed a hidden chamber containing substantial wealth, gold, silver and gems traced to the Ganges Sawai raid. Records indicated the property had been purchased under a false name shortly after Every's disappearance, suggesting the pirate captain had indeed returned to England with his treasure, living quietly until his death some years later. They found several journals as well, Garrett adds as you read. Apparently every kept detailed accounts, names, dates, shares distributed to each crew member. You look up sharply. Names? Garrett nods. Don't worry, the article mentions that most were listed under obvious aliases, and besides, after 15 years, he shrugs. Who's to connect a respectable frontier settler with a name in a dead pirate's journal? The reassurance is logical, but old habits of caution die hard. Why bring this to me? Thought you'd want to know. Closure, isn't it? The most successful pirate in history ended not with a noose but with quiet retirement. Garrett takes the paper back, refolding it carefully. Rather like yourself from what I can see. I'm no Every, you reply automatically. No, but you sailed with him, didn't you? He raises a hand as you tense. Peace, friend. I've suspected since I delivered Samuel's message. Makes no difference to me. That life's long past for both of us. Both? Garrett's smile is thin. You think you're the only one who left a questionable past behind? I wasn't always a legitimate merchant captain. The revelation shouldn't surprise you. The frontier is full of men reinventing themselves, leaving troubled histories behind. Still, the casual admission creates an unexpected connection between you and this occasional visitor to your settled life. Every's treasure, you say, returning to safer ground. What will happen to it? Claimed by the crown, naturally, though rumour has it only a fraction of his share was found. The rest? Garrett shrugs. Perhaps there's another hidden chamber somewhere, or perhaps he spent it, lived well in his final years. And the journals? Locked away in some government archive, I expect, of interest to historians rather than authorities these days. You nod, relief mingling with a strange nostalgia. Henry Every, the captain who changed the course of your life, whose shadow you've both fled and carried all these years, reduced now to a historical curiosity, his legendary status confirmed but rendered harmless by time. Thank you for bringing this, you tell Garrett sincerely. The captain acknowledges this with a slight bow. Thought you'd want to know how the story ended. After Garrett's departure, you share the news with Sarah alone, deciding that Thomas doesn't need this additional chapter just yet. She listens thoughtfully, sensing the complex emotions the revelation stirs in you. Does it change anything? She asks when you finished. Knowing Every survived, lived quietly with his treasure. You consider the question, watching autumn light filter through the cabin window. Not really, but it feels fitting somehow that the man who orchestrated the most profitable raid in pirate history managed to enjoy its fruits despite everything. You've done the same, Sarah points out gently. Not the wealth itself, but finding a good life afterward, creating something meaningful from what began in violence. Her perspective, as always, helps clarify your own. Perhaps there's a parallel between your path and Every's, both finding ways to disappear, to transform from pirates to private citizens, though you hope your use of the Ganji Sawai treasure has brought more benefit to others than Every's apparently did. Winter arrives with unusual mildness that year, snow falling lightly rather than in the deep drifts of previous seasons. The settlement adapts as it always does, turning inward to indoor projects, shared meals, and the closeness that develops when people live in necessary proximity. Your family finds its own winter rhythm, mornings spent on essential chores, afternoons devoted to teaching both children their letters and numbers, evenings filled with stories by the fire and simple games that bridge generations. Elizabeth, now nearly 4, sits on your lap one evening as you carve a small wooden horse, similar to the one McTavish made for Thomas years ago. Her small fingers trace the emerging shape with wonder. How do you know what to cut away? She asks, her vocabulary surprisingly advanced for her age. The horse is already in the wood, you tell her. I just have to find it. She considers this with the serious concentration that makes her so endearing, like finding treasure. A bit like that, yes. Thomas says you found real treasure once, on a big ship. You glance across the cabin to where Thomas sits with Sarah, helping sort dried herbs for winter remedies. He looks up, catching your gaze with an apologetic shrug. She asked about the box under the floor, he explains. I didn't tell her everything. It's all right, you assure him, turning back to Elizabeth. Yes, I found treasure once, a long time ago. Was it exciting? Her eyes shine with innocent curiosity. You choose your words carefully, aware of shaping memories that might last a lifetime. Not as exciting as finding you and Thomas and your mother. That's a much better treasure. Elizabeth accepts this with a child's easy adaptation to metaphor. We're not made of gold, silly. No, but you're worth more than all the gold in the world. She giggles at what sounds to her young ears like absurd exaggeration, not understanding the simple truth behind your words. The treasure of the Ganges Sawai, even at its legendary value, pales beside the worth of this small family in a remote valley. Winter eases gradually into spring, snow retreating from the valley floor to linger only on distant peaks. The settlement stirs from its seasonal dormancy, fields are prepared for planting, and the cycle begins anew. On a mild April morning, McTavish appears at your cabin door, his expression uncharacteristically hesitant. Got a moment? He asks, a familiar opening to potentially difficult conversations. You invite him in, offering coffee, a luxury traded from a merchant passing through during winter. He accepts, settling at your table while Sarah takes Elizabeth outside to check the early garden sprouts. I've been thinking, McTavish begins after a contemplative sip. I'm not getting any younger. Oh, none of us are, you observe, though in truth McTavish's age has become more apparent recently. His movements slower, his breathing sometimes laboured after exertion. The settlement needs leadership thinking toward the future, he continues. New blood, younger perspective. You wait, sensing where this is heading, but allowing him to arrive there at his own pace. The council's asked me to step back, take an advisory role instead of leading. He looks up from his cup. They want you to take my place. The proposal catches you off guard, despite your suspicion. Me? But I'm still relatively new here, barely 8 years. McTavish snorts. Longer than most, and you've proven yourself. Fair-minded, practical, respected by everyone from the oldest settler to the newest arrival. He pauses, unless there's some reason you wouldn't want that kind of attention. The question contains layers, acknowledgement of your past, concern for your privacy, understanding of old caution. Those concerns have faded, you answer truthfully, thanks in part to you keeping certain suspicions to yourself over the years. McTavish waves this away. A man's past is his own business, long as he lives right in the present. He leans forward. So, will you consider it? You think of the settlement that has become home, the people who have accepted you without demanding explanations, the future being built here that will outlast all of you. I'd be honoured, you reply simply. The old Scotsman nods with evident satisfaction. Good, that's settled then. That evening, as your family gathers for the daily ritual of supper together, you share the news of McTavish's proposal. Sarah's pride is evident, Thomas's excitement immediate. Does that mean you'll be in charge of everything? The boy asks. Hardly. You laugh. The council makes decisions together. I'd just help guide discussions, represent our settlement to outside officials when necessary. Still, Sarah says, it's a position of trust, a recognition of your place here. The significance isn't lost on you. A former pirate, once part of the most notorious raid in maritime history, now trusted to lead a growing settlement. Life's strange currents have carried you far from where you began. Spring deepens into summer, the valley lush with growth and possibility. Your new role becomes official at the summer solstice gathering, McTavish ceremonially handing over his worn copy of colonial law and a small wooden gavel he carved years ago when the settlement first established its council. "Guide them well," he says simply, the words carrying weight beyond their brevity. The responsibilities of leadership fit more comfortably than expected, perhaps because they draw on skills developed long ago on ships where success depended on collective effort and clear communication. You find satisfaction in mediating disputes, organizing communal projects, planning for the settlement's growth with an eye toward both opportunity and security. Thomas, now 14 and increasingly independent, takes on more responsibilities at home as your duties to the wider community expand. His interest in the wider world remains, fueled by occasional travelers' tales and the books you've gradually acquired through trade. Mr. Jenkins says a school might be established in the larger settlement downriver, he mentions one evening as he helps you repair a broken chair in your workshop. With a proper teacher from Philadelphia. "Would you like to attend such a school?" you ask, noting the careful neutrality in his tone. He hesitates, clearly torn. "I'd like to learn more about navigation, mathematics, natural philosophy, but it would mean leaving home. Only temporarily," you point out, "and not for several years yet. You wouldn't mind if I wanted to go?" You set down your tools, giving him your full attention. "Thomas, I want you to become whoever you're meant to be. If that requires education beyond what we can provide here, we'll find a way to make it happen." Relief crosses his features. "Mother says the same, but I worried you might think I was rejecting this life. Your life. This life was my choice," you tell him gently. "You deserve the same freedom to choose your own path." The conversation shifts to more immediate concerns: the chair repair, preparations for the autumn hunt, Elizabeth's determination to learn riding despite Sarah's concerns about her age. But something has shifted between you and Thomas, an acknowledgement of future paths diverging even as present bonds remain strong. Autumn brings spectacular colour to the valley, trees blazing with red and gold against deepening blue skies. The harvest proves abundant, storehouses filled to capacity, a testament to the settlement's growing prosperity and skill. One golden afternoon, as you return from settling a boundary dispute between neighbouring farms, you find Sarah sitting alone on the porch, an unopened letter in her hands. "This came," she says as you join her, "from Samuel." You take the letter with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Samuel has written only twice in 8 years, once to announce the hunter's death, once to share news of his growing family in Ireland. What prompts this communication now? Breaking the seal, you unfold the single sheet covered in Samuel's distinctive hand. "Friend, news reaches us even in remote Kinsale. The Fancy's ghost walks again in London drawing rooms and government offices. Every's journals have stirred old embers. Most names remain obscure, aliases meaningless after nearly 20 years. But caution suggests a final severance from all that connected us to that time. I've sold my land here, taking family to America's northern colonies where distance offers additional security. Consider whether your own position remains tenable. Should you need sanctuary, we settle near Halifax. A ship called Second Chance makes regular trade there from Philadelphia. The captain knows to expect friends." You read the letter twice before passing it to Sarah, whose face grows serious as she absorbs its implications. Do you think there's real danger? She asks after a long moment. You consider the question carefully, weighing old paranoia against practical reality. Probably not. 20 years is a lifetime ago. The authorities have bigger concerns than aging pirates who've caused no trouble for decades. But Samuel thought it worth warning you, worth uprooting his entire life. Or Samuel was always more cautious than me. You attempt a reassuring smile. Besides, we're further from centres of authority here than he was in Ireland. Who would connect frontier settler John Smith with a nameless crewman from the Fancy? Sarah studies you, seeing through the casual dismissal. What does your instinct tell you? The question gives you pause. Instinct, the sailor's sixth sense that warns of approaching storms when the sky still appears clear, has saved your life more than once. That it's time to prepare, you admit finally, not to flee but to have options ready should they become necessary. She nods, accepting this middle path between complacency and panic. We'll talk to Thomas, make arrangements quietly. And your father? He'd come with us, she says, without hesitation. His loyalty is to family, not place. The conversation feels surreal, discussing potential flight from a home built over years, a community where you've earned trust and respect. Yet the shadow of the Fancy, of Henry Every and the Ganges Sawai has always lingered at the edges of your settled life. Perhaps it always will. Winter arrives early that year, snow falling before October ends. The settlement turns inward again, focusing on survival and community through the cold months. Your family makes quiet preparations, important documents gathered, essential supplies set aside, routes discussed or sang, while continuing normal life with deliberate optimism. Thomas takes the news of Samuel's warning with remarkable maturity. I've always wondered if we might need to leave suddenly, he admits. Since you told me the full story, it may come to nothing, you remind him. Just precaution. Better to be prepared, he grins suddenly. And Halifax is nearer the ocean. I might finally see those whales. His ability to find positive aspects in potential upheaval eases your concern somewhat. Elizabeth, still too young to understand the complexities of your past, remains blissfully unaware of contingency plans, her world bounded by the security of family and home. Winter deepens, snow piling against cabin walls, ice forming thick crusts on the stream and pond. Days shorten to brief intervals of grey light between long nights where stars shine with brilliant clarity through cold air. The settlement endures as it always has, through shared resources, communal meals when supplies run low for individual families, the knowledge that survival depends on collective effort. No strangers appear on the snow-covered Eastern Trail. No official messengers arrive bearing questions about former sailors. The routine of winter, mending tools, preserving food, telling stories by firelight continues uninterrupted by outside concerns. By February, when the cold reaches its deepest grip on the valley, you've begun to relax somewhat, to consider Samuel's warning overly cautious. Perhaps the stir caused by Every's journals has already faded in London, replaced by newer sensations, more immediate concerns of empire and economy. One evening, as wind howls around the cabin corners and your family gathers close to the hearth, Thomas looks up from the book he's been reading, a history of navigation acquired from a travelling merchant. "Father," he says thoughtfully, "do you regret it, sailing with Every?" The question, coming after months of more practical concerns, catches you unprepared. "That's complicated," you answer honestly. "I regret the suffering caused, especially aboard the Ganges Sawai. I regret taking wealth that wasn't mine to take." "But," Thomas prompts, sensing the unspoken qualification. But without that journey, I wouldn't have found the place, wouldn't have met your mother, wouldn't have you and Elizabeth. You look around the cabin, at the life built from those fateful decisions long ago. Hard to regret the path that led here, even if parts of that journey were wrong. Thomas nods, seemingly satisfied with this nuanced answer. The book says Every was the most successful pirate in history, but I think you're more successful. How do you figure that? He died alone, hiding his treasure. You found something better to do with yours. The simple observation from your son strikes deeper than any philosophical treatise could. In that moment, you realize that whatever comes, whether you remain in this valley for decades more, or are forced to flee to distant Halifax, you've already achieved something Every never did. Not just survival, not just escaping the noose, but genuine redemption, a life transformed from taking to giving, from destruction to creation, a legacy beyond piracy, beyond even the Ganges Sawai's fabled treasure. Spring arrives with gentle persistence, snow retreating, new growth emerging, the cycle beginning anew. No threat materializes from the east, no echoes of your pirate past disrupt the peaceful rhythm of settlement life. Samuel's warning remains just that, a caution from a friend who chose a different path to security. On a warm May morning, you stand with Sarah on the porch, watching Thomas and Elizabeth playing near the pond where the boat named Sarah's Dream still floats, weathered but sound. McTavish sits nearby, whittling a toy for his youngest grandchild, his movements slower, but his eyes still sharp. "We've been fortunate," Sarah says softly, her hand finding yours with familiar ease. "Beyond measure," you agree, understanding she means far more than just the lack of trouble from your past. The valley stretches before you, green and promising in spring light. The settlement has grown, new cabins appearing each year, fields expanding, a future unfolding that will continue long after all of you are gone. Your own cabin stands solid and welcoming, surrounded by apple trees now tall enough to cast substantial shade, the workshop alongside busy with projects that benefit the community. This is your treasure now, not gold or jewels or even the fading memory of adventure, but the peaceful life built from uncertain beginnings. A home, a family, a place of belonging earned through years of honest labor and genuine care. Henry Every, the most successful pirate in history, vanished with his legendary wealth, leaving behind only mysteries and whispered tales. But you,